entombed for 3,000 years, wrapped growing in me. I have lived an eternity, suspended in darkness. Release me. Condemned and bound, the sands of time have run out. Curse fills the room, curiously open my tomb. Rising from the cradle of death, my sentence has come to an end. Release me, release me, wasting and running. Release me, release me. My curse is your curse, death is the gift I bring. Revenge in my hands, I feel no remorse. This is the mommy's curse. Release me, release me, wasting and running. Release me, release me. When the hunger wakes me, I live to feed. With the darkness surrounds me, shape shifting in the night, stalking you. Does my face seem familiar? Does my back tell you more? Will I change you or will it end you? And the power that I have can give you eternal life. Death doesn't know me, I've become eternal. When the hunger wakes me, I live to feed. With the darkness surrounds me, where the mist, she follows me. I walk alone in the night, watching you, following you, leading on you through the night. When the hunger wakes me, I live to feed. the darkness surrounds me. All your life I was still, I become the living dead. I own the darkness and no heartbeats inside of me. I become eternal. When the hunger wakes me, I live to feed. With the darkness surrounds me.
Okay, folks. Welcome to the late night edition of Paranormal Roundtable. This is a Tuesday. I know usually Tuesday we have a show, and I was like, you know what? I got things to do. I had to go out of town. I had to go take care of some business, and we got back, and we had to eat dinner. And my wife was like, "You ain't doing no show until you feed me." And so I said I wanted to do it. I wanted to do it sooner, but thank Nelly. She was just like, "Nope, nope, we got to eat dinner." And so we did, and everything worked out, and here we are. So it is a late show, but I'm expecting that people will go and watch the replay. So it's not such a big deal if people don't show up in the chat. I really appreciate that they do. And it's a lot of fun. We have a lot of fun here. So we have a late night show. Proud of my man Abe last night. He went live, and of course, somebody showed up to troll him. At most, I think there was like 22 people maybe in the live. But then I wake up today, and I saw like about noon today or something like that there was like 1,000 people had watched it. So I was really proud of them, and I'm impressed that they did that. I want to give a couple shout outs to some other people that are doing really good work. Ry Voss from Codega's Cabinet of Curiosity. I've been checking him out. Good job. He's been doing a good job. And who else has been doing an excellent job? Bart Nunley. He's going to be on tomorrow night from 8 to 10. He's been doing incredible. Pray for both of us. Barton and I both are dealing with tooth problem. I have a tooth here that's been waiting to cause a problem. Like Barton messaged me today, and he said he's got a tooth problem. Please pray for him. And at the same time, mine is happening too. So that's weird. I'm 48 years old, and just now starting to develop a tooth problem. It's been wore down. It was my inside my canine. It's been worn down, and I don't know which one of it is on him, but he was like 57 and just now getting a cavity. So I told him, I said, that's a good run. You had a good run. So did I. I would like to go to 50. I don't think I'm getting a cavity. Mine's just wore down, and I think it's starting to get to the point where it's starting to cause me some issues. And so yeah, I'm looking at a dentist appointment pretty soon. I've had pretty healthy teeth most of my life. I think my dad had like one cavity in his life. My mother had none for her entire life. She was almost 70 when she passed away. So let's hope that holds up for me. It's genetics, I guess. But pray for him. He's got that going on. And then we have Blondes and Booze this Thursday. Talked to my man Garitano today. Briefly, we messaged back and forth. He's ready to go. He's coming on Thursday with Blondes and Booze. It's gonna be good, man. Eric Palacios from Media Palace. He was on. He does great work. And he was on last Thursday, and Blondes and Booze have been hitting home runs, man. I mean, they have been knocking it out of the park. Why they don't have more subs, I have no idea. Another people who've been like just killing it lately is, of course, Hellbent Holler, Jesse and Joe from Hellbent Holler. They've been doing some great work. And apparently there's people that don't like them. It's like there's people that don't like me. It's like there's people that don't like my man, what's his face, Abe, and they don't like Bettina. Well, tough titty. You just have to get over it because we're here, and that's it. And the trolls are going to be what they're going to be. They're going to do what they're going to do. They're going to say what they're going to say. I have no control over those people, and I don't care. They're just a bunch of rowdy Gauls. Mad and angry because the empire is growing, and they're just there in the outskirts going, yeah, covering themselves in poop and mud. And more power to us and less to them. That's all I got to say. So here's what I'm going to tell you. We also have a couple of things going on here. Tex is another one I want to send a shout out to. Tex, Texas Front Porch, and BMR Boomer. He's been doing great work. He was on earlier tonight, and out of respect for him, I didn't go live earlier, but I'm here now. But a couple things we got going on. I've been doing a lot of work with the whole vampire werewolf thing. And so I've caught some people's attention. I've caught some people who want to troll me for it. And then by the same token, I've caught some people who are kind of weird. Really weird. Some people who are basically threatening. I mean, like saying, hey, find something else to talk about. Now, it's odd that people would say those things unless they have some sort of stake in you, no pun intended, and you, what you're talking about. But I don't have permission to say this person's name, and I didn't ask. but I will just lift it up here. So this person tells me that they had a vampire encounter. This was just today. 2 of them. 2 in 2 days. And then on Monday, I had one that was a follow-up. Those that I really don't count. And then on Sunday, there was none. Saturday, there was none. Yes, Saturday, there was one. And then nothing on Thursday. And there was one on Friday. And nothing on Thursday. Or most of last week. But in the last few days, it has really ramped up. We've had several people coming forward and saying, hey, I had what I believe to be a vampire encounter. And it's crazy to me, like how many people are actually coming forward and telling me this. One of them is mysteriously disappeared. I'll have to figure that out. But I had done some work on a show that we were going to do, an hour-long show, with somebody named Rafino who had gotten in touch with me. He's from Mexico, and he lived in the United States for 32 years. And he's been here since he was 12. So do the math. He's a little younger than me. What's crazy is that Rafino and what happened to him and his brother is nothing short of miraculous that they're still alive. But he had a bevy of things to talk about. And it all started from a city or a small village outside of Tlaxcala. Tlaxcala is literally the home. It's to the south east of Mexico City. And I'll explain to you a little bit about the history of this place. Tlaxcalans were actually the only people within a 200-mile radius to resist the Aztecs. Everyone else had been taken over, and at least had been paying tribute. Once the Aztecs knew that they existed, they would show up en masse and pretty much kick their ass and take everything they had, enslave their people, and at best, you'd become a slave. At worst, you were sacrificed to Huitzilopochtli, the god of war, and also the god to keep the sun rising or whatever. It needed blood. So that was the guy. And so they were a very fierce and warlike barbaric tribe from Mexico. And the Tlaxcalans, though, they embodied everything that would be heroic in the way that they withstood for centuries, maybe even. We don't know how long. But at least 200 years of Aztec oppression, and add them trying to, and now the Aztecs were a loose confederation of tribes, but the original Aztec people came from the north, somewhere from the north. They arrived in the area of Lake Texcoco, and they decided, hey, this is where we're going to set up shop. And then they just took it over, Tenochtitlan, and they just Teotihuacan, that whole region became theirs. And they dominated and controlled for a long time. At least 2, maybe 3 centuries of domination in some form or another. They were a power. And it didn't end until the evil Spaniards came and stopped them. Now, people can say what they want about the Spaniards, but it never would have stopped. And it would have eventually probably led to the biggest genocide in history if it hadn't been for that intervention. A lot of people have their opinions about it. They believe that the Spaniards were evil. And then they say ridiculous things like, oh, well, they killed them with germs. I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to burst your bubble, and I'm going to say this, and that's one of the reasons why I'm going to Rumble, because I can tell the true history about what really happened. No, it's not. Thank you for that donation, Zachary Factory. I'm trying to find it so I can post it up here. It's not as cut and dry as people like to think. The evil Spaniards came, gave them dirty blankets or some bull crap, and then that's how they were defeated. No. The other natives joined up with the ones that were being oppressed and were part of the Aztec Empire, but unwillingly. They flipped and they joined forces with the Spaniards. The fist that was used to punch the Aztecs the hardest was the Tlaxcalan. Without them and the Tabascans from the coast who joined up with them, they never would have done what they did. And without the Tabascans being their original ally to lead them to Tlaxcalas, they probably never would have been able to do anything. So it was all the natives that were around the Aztecs that gave, their help to, and a lot of people said, oh, they had no idea they were leading the enemy in through the front door. Well, it's basically, the devil you know versus the devil you don't. And so some would say, hey, you're just going to work with the devil you know, but the devil they knew was committing genocide against them. So it's safe to say, and I can sit here and go on record and say that the Tlaxcalans they would no longer exist. The city of Tlaxcala wouldn't even exist if the Spaniards hadn't arrived. So that's my take on it. And this is not about religion or anything else. This is just the facts. It's the truth. I don't spit out my propaganda to people. I don't do that. What I'm telling you is the absolute truth. And one of the subjects I know a lot about is the downfall of the Aztec Empire. Well, a lot of weird things took place during the Aztec Empire. There's a woman that I interviewed one time recently who lives in Mexico City to this day. And she has had lots and lots of dreams. Dreams that she believes connect her to the past of Aztlan. Aztlan being the home of the Aztecs. She also claimed that she dreamed about me years before ever talking to me or seeing me on my show. Her name is Mara. And Mara had basically told me, she's a clairvoyant and a psychic, got some pretty good predictions correct. She reached out to a listener of the show, and that person reached out to actually was at the conference and mentioned her in passing and saying that she was somebody that they had corresponded with and that I should talk to this person. I said, well, I don't go out of my way to reach out to too many people. If I do, consider yourself lucky, special. I don't lucky, but you know what I mean. I don't have time. So if this person wants to talk to me, she can reach out to me. And about a month ago, she did. And one of the things that she told me was that the episode where I talked about having a vision one time in 1996 when I was at a nightclub fighting with two people from Mexico, and I was up on the steps. She said that wasn't a vision. She went on to go into really deep, rich detail about supposedly the past life that I had as a Spaniard, and what had happened and what transpired, even going into the detail of my death, which I had no clue was even like, I don't know how that would have happened or what. She also claimed that we reincarnate sometimes with our pets. Now, this is what she believes. This is what she says. This isn't me going, hey, guys, I believe this. This is blah, blah, blah. Same thing with the whole Anunnaki thing where this one dumbass went around telling the whole community that I worship Anunnaki because he's full of shit. That's not what happened. And that's not what I believe. It's just a theory that I postulated on, and it's just my show, and we can talk about whatever we want. And so what I want to tell you right now is what she told me. But before we go into that and tell that story and get deep into it, the guy that I was originally talking about, Rafino, he had a story to tell me about the Tlaxcalan area. And he claimed that for years and years and years, there were reptilians. But they weren't normal reptilians. They were reptilians. They were like vampires, and they drank blood. And they would come out of Mexico City in that region. And they lived underground, and they were amphibious, according to him. Now, this is all something that he uncovered through a massive amount of investigating with his friend Mario. Now, Mario and him, that's his first cousin. And then Mario's best friend, hold on one second. David says, I am very much interested in the various empires throughout history and their commonality having pyramid structure sites, the Aztecs being one such empire. Yes. Same thing with the Cambodian story from my friend Troy. That story that he told, being in his parents being Cambodian immigrants, when he went back to Cambodia and he had the weird dreams, and those were those ziggurats. They were smaller and more steep. Same thing, though. They were ziggurats. Same thing with the Gujarat in India, the port of Gujarati, which was founded by Bactrian Greeks. But why would it have those same pyramidal shapes? Just like in Sri Lanka and the Tamils, it's weird. It goes on and on and on and on and on. There at one time were even little structures in northern Finland, which are no longer there, but there's the remnants of it. And they found drawings in caves and things like that that show these ziggurats. And these are places all over the world, which just all over the map, thousands of miles from one another. Now, you can't tell me that that's all the coincidence. That's all just a big accident, right? who the hell knows, right? But anyway, thank you for those donations. It's greatly appreciated. We appreciate that. And I put the GoFundMe to Brother Heck. I'll put it on my Facebook, and I'll just announce it on the show. If you want to go and look at that and donate, you can do that. So thank you for the donations. We appreciate it. Because right now we did take legal action as of Friday against some of the people who've been on the attack against us, and they will be getting dealt with legally. It's going to happen. So that costs money, and it also costs money to get the camera equipment. I did talk to my friend Joe Breezy, who's that Breezy is not his last name, it's his nickname, but he comes on the show on Friday with me and Monica Rollins and Abe Cias, and they'll be on this Friday too. And one of the things that we talked about, or we have been talking about. Hold on a second. Yes, Love Cat, thank you. And Love Cat, don't you have something going on too? I believe you have some. She's having some health issues, folks, too. So Joe got in touch with me yesterday, and he has a friend from San Antonio. I'm not going to say his name or mention him, whatever, but he knows a lot of the same people I do, and he's worked with some camera work, video work. He wants to do a collaboration, and Joe's gonna broker that deal, and we're going to be doing some investigations. And one of the places I want to go to is Lawrence Cemetery, and that is out near Nowak, near Scruggs, where the bull riding events take place. I go there about twice a year. And there's a lot of weird stuff out there. I got a story of a black dog jumping on somebody's Mustang. I got another one about black cat people roaming around out there and ghosts like you wouldn't believe. And I got a really creepy ghost story out of there too. But tonight we're going to do some talking. And in fact, because I have that one in the deal too. Let me write that one down real quick so we can tell that one. Look at this. What is this? This is and Anthony says, I like these pens. Yeah, I do too. In the trash. That's where, I think tattoos are cool on other people. Exactly. So let's see here. I want to tell that story of the ghost. It's a Confederate ghost. Because there's some Confederates buried out there. Strange, wild, weird, wild stuff. Here's what I'm going to tell you. The werewolf story tonight that I'm going to get into, just stay tuned for that, because it's a doozy, and I'm going to try and go. It's 11 o'clock. I'm probably going to try and go until about 1. So we got about 2 hours. If that's too long for you and you got a bedtime, I understand. Go to bed. Get out of here. But not until you donate. You need to donate money, or I ain't doing this shit. Okay? I'm going to tell you right now, I ain't doing this for free. All right? I'm sick of this crap. All right? I can do it, but I need to get paid up in this mall. No, I'm just joking, folks. I'm giving my enemies sound bites that they can use to talk trash about me, because that way they don't have to lie. I'm trying to save your soul so that when you lie, it's no longer a lie, it's the truth, because I did say that. And then you don't have to go to hell. But you don't love people like you're supposed to love me. If you don't love me, you're going to hell. So there you go. I'm just letting them know. I'm just being nice. I'm trying to help you out, man. I'm doing you a solid. People don't want that. They want to complain because I throw a ball against the wall like this, or I do this. They said, stop doing that. Stop watching your show because I'm a cut it. But here's what I'm going to tell you. Political correctness aside and all the other things that I'm supposed to be doing and whatever, I'm going to tell you this. When you start looking into these weird reptilian stories, oh, and by the way, I am a blood-sucking reptilian shapeshifter. That was also posted in the comment section. And one of my listeners took a screenshot and showed me, and I had a good laugh. I didn't remove it. I think somebody else did, but I just let it ride. Last week I was a vampire or a werewolf, and the week before I was something else, a demon, or I'm kneeling before the devil, or whatever that kook crazy dude said, the demented Aggie. So we're going to start calling him the demented Aggie because that's what he is. He's a demented Aggie. So he knows who we're talking about. He drives around Texas and calls 47 people, and tells them, hey, blah, 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 blah about this guy. So, every week I'm something else. I'm something more evil than the week before. Okay. Reptilian shapeshifter is what I am now. But all that other aside, talking to this guy, Rafino, it really hit home because I talked to him about 2 weeks prior to talking to Mata, and what she had to tell me about the clairvoyancy and the psychic and all that. She had some dire predictions for the future too. And not just for us, but for Mexico. See, I also saw on her timeline, which is all in Spanish, so if you don't speak Spanish, it's kind of pointless. But she predicted that Mexico City would run out of water. And that was 10 years ago. The interesting thing is that you can say, well, there's 20 million people living there. It's like 3 times the size of New York. Of course, it couldn't run out of water, even though it's built on a freaking lake. The problem was that she predicted the exact year that it would start happening. That was in 2014. This is 2024. So she was pretty damn accurate. Another thing she said was that there would be a lot of upheaval going on after the eclipse, which she had predicted a lot of weird things that would take place and happen after the eclipse. So we're going to kind of wait and see how that plays out. I know damn well that a lot of weird stuff has happened. In particular, the cities that were affected by the eclipse, I've been getting stories left and right. And some of them are very just simple. My cat. He's just staring at me through the glass. He wants to come in so bad. No, you're not. So one of the things that I've noticed, the predictions of people saying, oh, there's all these things going to happen and, it's going to be this big, crazy, whatever. It is happening. It really is. There's a lot of people reporting a lot of strange things, orbs in their house, floating through their rooms, bedrooms, whatever. Speaking of cats, one person told me that their cat talked to them. This is a person who's been a listener of my show for like years, and I've never heard anything from this dude. And it wasn't actually him that it happened to; it was his wife. But still, you know how it is when you're in a relationship with whatever. Your wife might as well be you. Something happens to Nellie and she stubs her toe. I got to go, oh, mine too. Oh, it hurts. Yeah. I'm kidding, folks. I'm joking. She's over there like getting mad. I'm messing with you, honey. I love you. And if you stub your toe, I'll sympathy pain with you. But I'm just glad it's not me. Okay, because I'm not that clumsy. But the thing is, I'm messing with you, okay? Don't beat me. So here's what happens. This guy gets in touch with me and tells me, he's like, dude, I gotta, what does it say here? Let me post this real quick. What is Shade Viking saying here? Menu pricing, standard Dogman story, $5. Dogman Supreme, including a Bigfoot fight. I don't have any of those right now. $10. Vampire story, $20. Wow, those are expensive. Also, we were having a special on BEK stories this week, half price. Well, there you have it, folks. There's the pricing right there. I didn't do it, but my staff did. And Shade Viking is not affiliated with PRT in any shape or form because he says mean things and has bad memes that make people hurt their feelings or whatever. So I can't say that but he is my friend. So funny. Here's what I'm going to tell you. Okay, so Love Cat does have a GoFundMe. Love Cat, if you want to post that link or whatever to the deal, you can do that. Here's what I'm going to tell you. If you guys, were to live in an area where it became normal, like just a standard thing, that there were people who lived around you who practiced a form of magic known as brujeria. And if you had a problem with someone, you just go and you talk to the local bruja, which is a witch. And that person says, what do you need? You want a spell? You want a love spell? You want to make this person's thing not work so that they lose their woman? Or do you want to make the woman, something happen to her so the man loses interest and goes away? What do you want to do? You want to make somebody's hair fall out? You want to make somebody's tongue quit working? What is it that you want? And each price is more and more expensive. Each thing becoming more and more, related, like blood. They use blood sacrifice in these rituals sometimes. Sometimes they just require a lot of rituals that you do yourself. Weird stuff. But when Rafino was a child, this is where the story begins. He was 8 years old. He went to this woman with his tia, his aunt. And she took him there. His mother had told him that he was never to go there. But his aunt was one of those wild ones. That was her younger sister, and she was always with a new man and always doing weird, wild stuff. Takes him to see this soothsayer. Now, we know biblically we're not supposed to mess with that. And most books that talk about anything holy on earth will warn you about the spirit world and the dangers of dealing with something that we don't understand and we can't fully comprehend. So when he was there, he noticed this woman's skin. She was wearing like this shawl and this cloak on her, like this veil. She had it wrapped around her. She was a gypsy. Now people say, oh, that's Mexico. Yes, there's gypsies in Mexico. There's different types of gypsies all over the world. They all originally come from the same place, which is India. True story. But the further west they go in Europe, the more light-skinned and the more Caucasian they become. By the time they got to the British Isles, they were known as travelers. They had interbred with the locals so much that they don't even look like they're from India. Now, they may have dark eyes, but that's about it. Most of them are very light-skinned. Now, in the mainland of Europe, you still have some that are a lot more dusky-hued, and they have that look of Indo-European. But the ones that ended up overseas, how did they get there? I don't know. They got here in America. There's Roma here. There's different types of gypsies. The ones they call pike, that's the ones from England. They came here. And there was a large contingency of Irish people that migrated right before and during and after the Civil War of the United States. They ended up not going to the United States because as soon as they got off the boat, they got handed a rifle and told to go fight for the North and go to the South. And in fact, they created an endless supply of soldiers that inevitably helped to defeat the Confederacy. But the Irish, not particularly interested in fighting in a war that wasn't really theirs, just trying to escape potato famine, they decided that Mexico was a better option. Now, because of that, a lot of these travelers or pikas ended up going to Mexico. And that's what this woman was. According to what Rafino told me, and I'm saying this, not that he knew it, but I know it because she had reddish blonde hair and green eyes. Now, the green eyes could be something else. One of the things he told me, he says, I watched this woman's hand change. Like the skin on her left hand. He goes, I'll never forget. I was looking at it. She was laying down cards. And he goes, and her left eye and her left hand changed into a yellowish green color. And by the weird lamp that she had, he goes, I noticed she didn't look human. And he goes, I thought, and this is what he told me. He's like, what the shit is this? He goes, I was a kid and I was thinking, what in the hell? He goes, I pulled back. He goes, and she looked right up at me. He goes, and I saw one eye looking like in his words, a cat's eye. And then the other one. The other one was normal. And he said these cat-eyed people, there were legends and stories of them, that they would roam around in the wilderness between Mexico City and Tlaxcala. And the legend goes that they were the original inhabitants before the Aztecs came. And that they interbred with the Aztecs, creating the bloodlust that the Aztecs held in their hearts. And that they were the reason why the Aztecs were so bloodthirsty. Because these reptilians demanded blood. They wanted blood, and they were the true masters of the Aztecs. Now, this could just be boogeyman stories that the Tlaxcalans told to villainize and demonize the inhabitants of Tenochtitlan, or as we know it now, Mexico City. Bad blood between those two for a long, long time. Two different people, not really getting along, but forced to live in the same country together. And eventually, soccer matches turned into fights, baseball games turning into war. Because they don't like each other. When a Tlaxcalan goes to live in Mexico City to work, they're called a chilango. When in reality, a chilango is a type of gypsy, much like this woman. She would be considered a chilango, a gypsy. This person, what she did when she was dealing out the cards, she told him to lift up a card, and he said, I'm not doing that. And then she looked at him, he goes, and he said her tongue came out and flickered back up. He goes, and how is my aunt not noticing this? He goes, I look over and not even aware, my aunt's head was down. She was asleep. She was in some sort of trance-like state, and she was moaning. And he goes, and I went to try to wake her up. And this woman reached over with her clawed hand and pushed my hand away and said, don't touch her. She's mine right now. And she told him, pick it up. Pick up the card. She called him little boy, niño. Do what I tell you. He slowly picked up the card. He lifted it and turned it over. It was an old card with a skeleton and a sickle. And she's like, that's the death card. He didn't know what that meant. But she said, don't worry, it's for your aunt. In 2 years, she's going to die. And ultimately, she did. She got ovarian cancer and she was dead. 2 years. Things were different down there. Not like in the United States where you could go and just get treatment and all kinds of things could happen. No. Doesn't work that way down there. You get sick, you don't have money, you die. It's simple as that. It's the third world. And no one knew it better than him. They lived in a 2-room shack, him and 3 siblings, his mother and his dad. His dad ultimately got really ill from walking pneumonia and got his mother ill. Dad recovered, but the mother didn't. He went to work every day, sick. Just kept going. Couldn't stop. Had to put food on the table. Making what the equivalent of today's money would be like $200 a month, which was even good for that time, for that neighborhood where he was at. He goes, our village was dirt poor, literally, dirt floor, everything. $200 a month. But imagine living on $200 a month when you have a wife and 4 kids and his mother to take care of, who was sick, real bad diabetic. So there wasn't a lot of hope. Eventually, he came to the United States when he was a kid, and he came with his aunt and uncle, never looked back on his mother's side. Ended up living in Arizona, working, going from job to job, but he was happy to make the money that he could not make in Mexico, and he sent back half of everything he made. And by his own admission, he goes, I didn't do anything with my life. I just drank and I lived for the weekend. Everything was one big pachanga. That's party in Spanish. And then when I got paid, well, my money was blown. He's like, and then I developed a little bit of a habit. He goes, I smoked a lot of pot and I did some drugs. He's like, but I never hurt anybody or stole from anybody. I just had to work all the time. And when I wasn't working, I was constantly drunk or high. And he said that he would go back home to Mexico, but it would be so depressing seeing all the poor people, the destitute, the pestilence, always everybody sick. They say, oh, in Mexico, you can get free healthcare. He goes, yeah, if you're willing to stand in line for 2 days. Great. Some of the programs worked, like you could go to a pharmacy and get the medication you needed, but it costs money. It's not free. And then some of them didn't. Like when you're sick, you get free healthcare. You could go to the doctor or whatever. Yeah, sure. If, like he said, you're willing to stand in line for 2 days. The problem with that sort of system, we're not going to get into it. This isn't Rumble. But I can tell you this, it doesn't work. And so he spent a lot of time not going back home. Him and his dad had left on hard words. He didn't really like dealing with him or seeing him. His dad beat him a lot. Took everything out on the boys. 2 boys and 2 girls. The 2 boys, he said, we bore the brunt of all of his anger. Everything. One of the things that he said, too, was that his dad was not a superstitious man. So when he had his first encounter with these amphibious vampires, as he calls them, his dad had no patience for it. Basically called it mentiras, lies, bullshit. Didn't believe it. And told him not to bring it up again because, him being the oldest, he's scaring his siblings. In fact, his younger brother had a job working at a small factory. And he's like, your brother doesn't want to walk to work. 14 years old, and he's scared to go to work. And he said, yeah, there's a reason. Because of what they saw. Him and his hermanos, that's brother in Spanish, and their friend Mario were walking to work one day. And he told me, he said, dude, I could not live like that. There was no way to live that way. No way I could live that way. No way. So one day he decided when his aunt and uncle were getting ready to leave to go on a trip, he asked to go with them. They drove all the way from their home to the border to visit some people. He didn't tell me what border town. He just said it was a border town, and we were talking, and I was listening. And he said at that point, he's like, I knew I could look over the river and I saw America. It was in Texas at that point. He goes, and I want to go there. I want to be there. He was a little boy. And the stories that his dad had said, your brother now doesn't want to go to work because of you. His brother and him started working when they were 11 and 12 years old. Can you imagine that? It's hard to imagine. He's like, but when we were little, they would pick us up. He goes, and we would go and we'd work at this factory where we put rubber on the bottoms of shoes. It was just like these chanclas or whatever they'd make. They sold in like the markets, dirt cheap, barely made like $2 or $3 a day. And he said, dude, my dad was so angry at me because of what happened. He's like, it wasn't my fault. What we saw was real. And the stories that we had been told, he's like, one of my friends who played soccer, football as they call it, told me one day when they were playing soccer, this is the first you'd ever heard of this, something flew overhead. They didn't know what it was, but they saw a dark shape in the sky, and it was dusk. So many encounters happen right around dark or before dark. He's like, and we look up and we see this. Thank you for that donation, Dark Side. He says, Le Monde Orient, you're the best, Josh and family. Keep doing your thing, big dog. Thank you for that donation. He said, we see this thing. This is his friend, right? His friend was a few years older than him. He was actually one of the bosses at the factory. Can you imagine being a kid and having a boss that was a kid? Not in America. You wouldn't understand. There's no way. Now, this guy's only a couple years younger than me. So, yeah. But he's living back down in Mexico, at least part-time. He's got a house in Mexico and in the United States. He's done pretty well for himself. But he said that this thing was flying overhead. And they said years later, they saw the movie Jeepers Creepers. And that he's like, oh my gosh, this thing in this movie looked very similar to what we saw in the sky that day. Now, nothing happened that day. But about a week later, they were playing baseball. Soccer became baseball and whatever. He goes, and we were walking home, and this thing comes up out of a ditch carrying a donkey, a dead donkey, or at least the remnants of it. He goes, and when it dropped the donkey in the road, on the edge of the road in front of us, we all panicked and we screamed. He's like, and then this thing began to swoop overhead of us, going back and forth, dropping down and swooping overhead. He goes, and my friend Carlito, as we called him, he took his bat and he swung and he hit this thing in its lower abdomen. They could see that there was some type of genitalia, but they couldn't really make it out. And smart kid, he aimed for that soft tissue, and it must have worked because the thing screeched in pain. This was a physical creature, and it took off. He said when it was screeching and howling, at one point it stopped, hovered in the air, its wings flapping like a bat, as he called it, looked back at them, and then just took off into the sky. Humanoid, but also with a tail, and it looked like a dragon with a human face. Imagine what this thing must have looked like to 4 little children, the oldest of which was 14. This story was told and retold in the neighborhood, and it flew off in the direction of Mexico City, where the Tlaxcalans believe it comes from, where all the bad things come from. These boys were walking home from work one day, and one of them had a little bit of change in his pocket, and there were these guys that were selling ice cream. They walk around with the little carts or whatever, and they have the little ice cream bars or whatever, and he had just enough to buy an ice cream for him and his brother and his friend. Of course, they're like, we'll pay you back when we get paid and blah, blah, blah. And he said, okay. So he goes to stop this guy. Get this. The dude has a hat on his head. He's like, he reaches down. He's like, the guy won't lift his head up. He reaches down to grab the ice cream, and they see claws. And they're like, whoa. The manos, the hand. It's weird. It's like the manos peludos, like the hairy hand. You see there's hair all over it. And this dude lifts his head and they see with the beard and everything else, it looked fake. It was like a mask. And then they realize while they're standing there talking to this third world ice cream vendor, as I call them here, that he's not a human. They see the cat's eyes, the gatos, oh, cat eyes. And they look at this guy. And he tries to talk, but they could see that there was a mask, and it was a human skin mask on his face. And underneath, they could see the scales on his neck. And they noticed that the hand, at the tips of the fingers where the skin stopped, this man was wearing a human skin. And they stood there in horror, and they looked at this guy. And Rafino says, man, I said that the prayer. And I said, which one? He said, every one I could think of, and I was getting them all mixed up. It was like I was saying every one, the Lord's Prayer, Hail Mary, everything I could think of. He goes, I had a rosary in my pocket. I tried to pull it out, and I dropped it. He said, and this dude goes around the other side of the ice cream truck and reaches for my little brother and grabs him. And he said, my brother just took the change and threw it in his face, and they all just took off running. And he said the guy was laughing. And when he took off his hat, he said, we looked back, or at least I did. He goes, and there were horns, small little horns sticking out of this guy's head. And I said, what do you think it was? And he says, the devil. And I said, that's what a lot of people say that these things look like. Reptilian, like they look like the devil. There was even a story near Lake Worth where these people, it was given to my colleague and friend Lyle Blackburn, about a guy that looked like the devil that was going around and looking into people's windows at a lover's lane near Lake Worth. The devil. That's what they told him it looked like. It's happened to a lot of us. A lot of our fellow podcasters and authors have been given stories of something that looked like the devil. Small horns on its head. Maybe it has wings, maybe it doesn't, but they all have this one thing in common. They look like reptilians. They look reptile-like. And when you stop and you put all these stories together, then you start to realize maybe there's something to this. Maybe these things are real. Now, I hate to burst everybody's bubble. I could tell you more about them. I am not one of them. And as much as people would like me to be, I'm not. And if I was, I would hope that I could overcome my base desire urges to eat people or whatever it is that these things do. Liberty, thank you for that donation. Send lawyers guns and money. Yes, because that's what we need, right? But this thing, what it did next, it shrieked. It shrieked like a woman, and it wasn't tall. He wasn't big. He was about 6 foot. But it was, tall enough. But it was very human looking in the shape. So I asked him this question. I said, well, what if the skin, what if the skin was, that was where the horns were? It was like a mask. He was wearing a mask. He said, oh, it was a mask made of human skin. What was underneath it was definitely a lizard person. He said, we had heard stories of these things and that how they supposedly came from Aztlan. The Aztecs were supposedly these reptilians, these lizard people, hybrids. And nobody really knows the full story. This is me talking. Because supposedly when they got to where they were going, they set up shop, and maybe the reptilians were already there. Maybe they weren't. Maybe they interbred and they became whatever they are. But however you slice it, they're there. And I believe these people who've told me these stories. Ruben's another guy who talked to me. He's another guy that one day I'm going to give you his story. He lived in Mexico City, and he believed that his landlord was one of these creatures. broke his door down and took him and threw him out of a 2-story window. He said the guy wasn't big as a minute, but when he did, his eyes changed. And he said this guy was superhuman strength. And not like a guy that works out and earns it. No, this guy was just naturally that way. He said that this is another guy's story. I'll tell you that on another time. In fact, I'll write that one down so I can go back and flesh that one out, because that's another good one. And that one happened in Mexico City. There's a bunch of these. I got one out of Guadalajara, too. So what sets these reptilians apart from the others is that they drink blood. And in fact, one of the stories I got recently involved a woman who claimed that her mother, now this wasn't in Mexico, this was in the United States. She claimed that her mother would drink the blood of a freshly slaughtered hog. Now, this woman's 74 years old now. She also claimed that her mother had superhuman strength and that her eyes would change. And that one time, she saw a person hanging in their barn, and that her dad and her mother had these two beings, people, whatever, come into their barn and do something to this person. That's another story. Her name is Maggie. So when you get these stories and you're going like, what is going on here? How many people have seen these creatures? Every time we talk about it, we get a whole flood of new encounters of people with fresh horror to tell us. Oh, I know somebody who's encountered this. Talk to them. I saw this. My mother or my father did this, or they were involved in some sort of cult. They were vampiric. They did all this weird stuff. Or even my uncle practiced lycanthropy and turned into one of these creatures in a garage. And they told me and 4 other people this. One of them used to be in our chat. I haven't seen him in a long time. Always talking about his uncle being a werewolf. And then people say, well, wolf, werewolf. It's all bullcrap. Don't believe it. Even if 100 people tell you, 200, maybe 1,000. At this point, how many Dogman stories have I covered? I don't know. 1,000, 2,000, who knows? Do I keep count? I don't. Hundreds, if not thousands. And every one of them is lying? Everybody's lying. It's a mass hysteria, conspiracy. Reptilians, vampires, and werewolves don't exist. And in fact, just throw in aliens and ghosts. None of it does. It's all just a bunch of bullshit, right? Because the people that are in charge would like you to believe that. Yet they've spent millions of dollars on black programs. Black research programs, like black science. Trying to figure out what these things are. No doubt to figure out if they can control them or not. The blind leading the blind, right? Nothing and no one can control them but Jesus. Only God can control them, and the Son of God, his Son, Jesus Christ. That's what gives you the power over these things. And people tell me, oh, I'm not afraid of these things. I have a gun. Well, that's good. I'm happy for you. But a lot of times when you shoot one of these things, nothing happens. Whether it's a dogman or a Sasquatch or a vampire, it doesn't matter. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But are you willing to roll that dice? When the one thing we know works is salvation. But that's up to you, whether you want to accept it or not. And I'm not going to sit up here and try to proselytize to the entire world and tell you to go get saved. That's your job. Now, on with the story. What ended up happening with these 3 boys? They go back home and they tell their parents, and they're like, we saw this guy. He was selling ice cream, and they were all talking at the same time. And his dad didn't want to hear any of it. His mother was sick, and she was dying at that time. And he was like, I don't want to hear this crap. And then his brother was too scared to go to work. And these were kids. child labor. What does it matter? It's Mexico, right? And he said his dad's brother did listen to him. And so the next day he comes, he gives him a ride. He was one of the few people in that neighborhood who had a car. He gave him a ride to work. He said, I'm going to come every day and pick you up. I'm going to drop you off. His dad's brother had a job. He sold drugs. So he had time. And his dad didn't want anything, him didn't have anything to do with him. But he said, you know what? He goes, my uncle, he took care of us. Martin was his name. He's like, and he picked us up, dropped us off, gave us rides. He would sneak us money, ice cream, snacks, whatever. Dad didn't want to take his money. It was his younger brother. And he always said that his brother was no good. He was wild, wouldn't take his money. Was too proud. Because there were only two ways out of that neighborhood. That was to work yourself to death or sell drugs. And his dad was smart, though. He didn't want anything to do with the cartel. He didn't want them being able to come in and take anything from him. And I understand that. But you're living in an absolute place of no hope and despair. And it's part of the Kali Yuga. That is the trap. That's why if you believe in reincarnation, I'm not saying you do or you don't or you should, but the whole point is if you keep coming back, you keep going to a harder and harder life, that it's harder and harder. It's like a hole you've dug in. Then you end up in a neighborhood like there or in Sao Paulo, Brazil, somewhere where hope is so slim and so little and the suffering is so great that you'll do whatever you can to get out of it. But then you just dig yourself deeper and you end up in hell or reincarnating to a really bad place. It's even worse with even less hope and less despair and more despair. Getting deeper and deeper into the Kali Yuga and not going to heaven to be with the Father of Christ. That's my point. So what ended up happening? His uncle dealing drugs. He tells him, he says, I believe you about these people. He said, in fact, they're everywhere. And he told him, he said, yeah, they do. They come from Mexico City. He's like, the gypsy people. The one that you saw when you were younger, he told him, he says, that was one of them. Now, not all the gypsies there were of that bloodline. He goes, but there was a family of them that were. He's like, and the ice cream vendor, he's one of them too. He's like, and in fact, there's people running the cities and towns that are related. They're all related. And they've been doing this for a long, long time. Even before the Spaniards came, they were in charge. They just went underground. This is what his uncle told him. He said, so years later, he's like, I moved to the United States and I meet this girl and we fall in love. And she was my everything. And then one day I come home and there's a note. She's not happy. And she's gone. He's like, and so I turned to the bottle. Hey, Marditz is trying to get into the washroom, guys. So hold on one second. Let me get my cat before he gets in. All right. Had to take care of something. Animal's getting a little out of control. Martis knows how to open doors, and so I had to go and lock the doors so he couldn't. He was trying to get in up here. So, one of the hazards of working from home, I suppose. So, what ended up happening? Rafino tells me. He said, I got a longing to go back home. The woman broke my heart. He goes, and my dad, he called me out of the blue. And he said, son, I know a woman down here. I know her family very well. She's really pretty. I'd like you to introduce you to her. It's not like an arranged marriage, but like kinda, like they arranged like one family to hook up and meet. And he said, there's a quinceañera coming up. And he said, it's your cousin and be a good place to meet her. She's like, she's 20 years old and she's very beautiful. We sent her him a picture, and he said, I sent her a picture of you. And she was like, wow, he's cute. So he said he looked at it and he thought, wow, that's awesome. She's pretty. Her name is Irina. And he's like, good. He goes, I'll be back. So on Cinco de Mayo, which actually isn't that big a deal in Mexico, it is here. He goes back home and he flies back. He picks him up in Mexico City and they go back out to their village. And in the neighboring village is where the quinceañera was. He's like, can we go? And there's a big pachanga and they're doing all kinds of stuff, having a big celebration, the tres leches cake and everything, that the big celebration, right? His cousin's Sweet 15. And he meets Irina. And she was beautiful. He's like, if you believe in love at first sight, because this is what happened to me. He's like, I saw her. I couldn't take my eyes off of her. I watched her dance with other men. He goes, and then I became celoso. He goes, I never felt like that. Even the woman that I was in love with in Texas, he goes, I never felt that. And he's like, I felt this burning passion for this woman. I danced with her one time and she smelled like honey and rose. Her skin was soft and smooth and her movement was so fluid. He's like, dancing with her was like writing a poem that you could read over and over again. And he said, it was amazing, Wolf. He goes, there was nothing like it. Intoxicating. So I went on a date with her 2 days later. I couldn't wait to talk to her again. She had to go out of town for a couple of days. I talked to her again. And I took her on a date. Next thing you know, 3-4 months go by. He goes, and it was like, all I did was work enough to make some money to take her out. That was it. Because I was so in love with her and it happened so fast. And I couldn't believe I just totally forgot about this other girl. And then we made plans. And I took her to Arizona to live. And he's like, that's when things changed. We ended up in Tucson, he said. One of my cousins was there and he was a foreman at a job site. He did construction. And he's like, and I was a sheetrocker at that time. But I had other skills. And I wasn't planning on staying on as a sheetrocker. I wanted to do other things. And he's like, and I was trying to become an electrician's apprentice, to study. He goes, I was trying to find a job as an understudy. Hold on 1 second, folks. Give me 1 second. You guys can hear me? There we go. Try to catch up with the chat real quick. Hold on 1 second. And thank you for that donation, David Buckholz. Make sure to shout out what days you're on Rumble. Yeah, we're going to be starting in May, the second. We've made up our minds. The second Saturday in May, we're going to start. And this person Says, will everyone say a prayer for my brother? He's having a pacemaker put in tomorrow and he has leukemia. So he has another blood transfusion before surgery and he's in line for a bone marrow transplant. Deborah Norsworthy. Yes, please say a prayer. Thank you for posting that, Deborah. It's okay to post those things here. I have no problem with that. So what ended up happening? He gets married to her. And then she gets a job. And he said that she went to work with his sister at a job that she really wasn't qualified for, but she spoke enough English and she learned quickly. And his sister, who had been there in the States for a while, well, it was really his cousin, but he called her his sister. And he's like, my sister told me, she's like, she's picking it up really quickly. She was a loan officer. And she said, it won't be long. She'll be able to do this. This is, And then one day she told him, she's like, they were eating dinner and lunch. They went to lunch. And she says, Rafino, I love your wife. They got married. She's like, I don't want to talk ill of her. She's like, but what I tell you has to stay between you and I. And I'm going to tell you this. I don't think she's normal. And of course, he's like blinded by love at this point. He says, what do you mean? He wasn't interested in hearing anything bad about Irina. And she said, well, what do you really know about her? He's like, well, I know she comes from another family. And she's like, yeah, that's the point. Did you know, though, that she's adopted? And he said, well, yeah, what does that matter? He's like, so we really don't know where she came from. He goes, that's when I knew something was up, because my cousin proceeded to tell me that she said that she came from the coast. And she had told me that her family was from Mexico City originally, and that she was given up for adoption, and that the Tlaxcalan family had taken her in. And he said it wouldn't have been such a big deal, but it was such a blatant lie. He says, you know what? I'm gonna ask her about it. And she says, look, I don't want any problems. I don't want to get involved, whatever. There's something else. She's been talking to another guy that works there. Don't take it the wrong way or read in too far into it, but they seem to be really friendly. And the guy had a weird thing about him too. And his sister, or his cousin, as he's called her sister, he said, she told me, she's like, one day the guy got really angry with the dude on the phone. And when he slammed the phone down, he broke it. And his eyes changed to look like a cat or a lizard, a snake. And he was like bringing back memories. He goes, dude, my heart started beating fast. He goes, I began to hyperventilate right then and there in the restaurant. I was like, whoa. He goes, I don't know what's wrong. I'm starting to feel kind of faint. He goes, on the drive home, I remembered the ice cream man, as we called him, and his weird human skin covering his scales. And then I remember the gypsy woman who changed before my eyes and predicted my aunt's death. You see, they live in a world where the spiritual is just as real as the physical. It's like just right there. It's very tangible. And it's not only possible, it's probable that you will come in contact with it at some point in your life. You can't live in Mexico and not believe in this. In my opinion, some of them may still believe that it's all just superstition and they've, whatever. But a lot of people in Mexico have come to the realization that there's a lot of people practicing this because there's a lot of despair. And a lot of people have no hope. And when people have no hope, they turn to whatever they can, whatever they can do to try to bring hope to their lives. That's why it's so prevalent down there. And like I said before, black magic to me is just a black science that we will eventually understand, but it is to be avoided at all costs. And that is my caution to you, to avoid it. And just because someone speaks out against evil doesn't make them good. There's a lot of people who do that. They're always like, oh, I'm trying to spread awareness to the bad people, when they themselves are the wolf in sheep's clothing. Now, it's easy to sit back and villainize somebody when they're transparent and they tell you exactly how things are. That person's mean, or they're vile because of the way that they talk, or they're open about the way I am. I tell you exactly what it is, and you may not like it, and it may not be very palatable, and you may need to take a drink. I don't know. Wash down that nugget of truth with some Topo Chico. From Mexico. Heco in Mexico. But let me tell you this. What Rafino told me, he says, I went home and I brooded over this. He pondered over it. Not his words, mine. He just said he couldn't stop thinking about it. But he said, dude, I kept on just thinking about it, thinking about it. He goes, and then I got the nerve that Saturday morning, or he said it was Sunday morning. And he said, and I talked to her. And I said, Irina, is there another man that you've been talking to at work? She immediately flew into a rage. Who told you this? Of course. He shouldn't have approached it that way, because she immediately knew that it was his sister. And she got pissed off and told him, called her some choice words, and then got on the phone with her, screaming and cussing, and threw the phone across the room. He goes, and when she looked at me, he goes, her chest was heaving. He's like, and I saw scales appear across her face really quickly, and her eyes change. He's like, and I knew she wasn't normal. He's like, one time during coitus, I thought I saw this, but I couldn't be for sure. He's like, I just was in denial. I chalked it up to my mind playing tricks on me or something. Maybe I drank too much. When he tried to get her to calm down, he put his arm on her. She twisted his arm and almost broke his wrist, spraining his wrist. He pulled away and was like, what the hell? He said over the coming days that bled into weeks, that turned into months, we talked less and less, and we drifted further and further apart. He goes, I never saw love or passion grow so quickly, and then the flame go out so fast. And he said that it was gut-wrenching, like two ships passing in the night. He said, I went to a swing shift job. I volunteered for it so I didn't have to be around her. And then I knew she was seeing another man. And then one day, a man dropped her off at our apartment. He goes, we had barely spoken. And that last week, I walked out. I saw the guy. I saw her walk right by me. One thing he learned, though, he said, dude, the next day I was gone and I was back in Mexico. Told my boss, I said, I'll be back in 2 weeks. If you want to keep me on, keep me on. He said, sure. And then he left. One thing he learned about these beings is that they can make you fall in love with them like that. But they don't really feel love. This is what he said, the way we do. They look at you more as like a pet. You're not really a thing, a person to them. You're just a thing. He's like, and my brother, I went to stay at my brother's house. My brother liked fish. Not to like eat fish. I mean, maybe he did. I don't know. Maybe he went to Morisco's. I don't know. The point is that he had an aquarium and he had saltwater fish. And he said he went to that aquarium place with his brother, just kind of like, it's kind of interesting, but not really his thing. Like me and Anthony, we love aquarium stuff. So does my wife. But my wife, when she puts together aquarium, everything dies. So, I try to discourage her from it. I'm kidding. I'm not gonna, she's going to kill me. But we've had some problems lately trying to keep our imbunas going, but they're African cichlids. But I love fish. I love aquariums, and they're very relaxing. And Rafino noticed that too. He said, I would look at them for hours. I would just lay there on the couch staring at them. Helps that he was probably stoned too. But anyways, he's looking at these fish and he says, I started thinking that I would rather be one of these fish in this aquarium and never leave it than have to go out and be an adult in this world. And I said, I know what you mean. It's like they're confined, but they really don't know it. That's all they know. But at least they don't have all the anxiety and pressure that we do. And talking to this man, I could feel his pain. And he said, I never thought I would find another woman. He's like, I dated a little bit. He goes, in fact, the lady that ran the aquarium, she was cute. And we went out on a couple of dates and we were kind of having a, we were kind of getting along. He's like, and then we started to talk and she says, the woman that you were with, I went to school with her. He's like, and one time she choked a boy over the monkey bars, wouldn't let him up until blood came out of his mouth and he nearly died. And he was like, what? And she was like, yeah. She was always an odd duck. And nobody really knows where she came from. He goes, but she told him, my parents said that she was adopted, but that she came from the Yucatan near the coast. And he said, that's what she told my cousin. But oddly enough, the coast that she described was not near the Yucatan. It wasn't down in the jungle. So eventually she calls him at his dad's place and she's like, I see that you decided to leave and not pay your part of the bills. We still have 3 months on this lease up here in Arizona. You want to pay your part? And he said, sure, I'll pay it, but I can't do it all right now. I'll send you money every 2 weeks as I get paid on my day job. And she's like, are you coming back? And he said, no. And she says, good. So then I'm going to rent out the spare room or whatever. He said, go ahead, do what you want. In fact, bring your boyfriend there. I don't care. I have nothing for you. And he said that she told him, I know that you're inquiring about me. And he wasn't. He was like, I only talked to the one person, and that was the woman at the aquarium place. He's like, how in the hell did this woman know this? And then he figured it out. He said the gypsy woman, who's still alive, the ice cream vendor, which he didn't know anything about that guy one way or the other, and all the other people that he had encountered that had these weird things about them. He's like, they're an underground society. He goes, and Wolf, I'm convinced that they have a hive mentality. If it happens to one, it happens to the others, and they download this. This is his theory, spiritually. Like it's on a physical DNA level, but it comes from a spiritual place. He said, and I began to have these dreams. And in these dreams, I was in this black lake, like this dark water, this black water. He goes, and it was like tar. I couldn't get out of it. And I could feel these clawed hands pulling my feet, trying to drag me down. And I would go in, and I could see these reptilian, amphibious-looking creatures clawing at me. He's like, and then I would come up, and then Irina would be there, and she would be pushing my head down into the water, and I'd wake up staring at the aquarium. And at first I thought I was just like, I ate too many tacos, and was looking at the aquarium and the water and the food. Man, who knows? And then it became more frequent. And then he realized, this is no bull crap. These people are doing something to me. And he goes, but I'm not a punk. He's like, I'm not as big as you. I'm not a big, tough guy, whatever. He's like, but I'm not a punk. And I drove over to the tarot reading. He used a choice word to describe her, who took pleasure in my aunt's demise, the way he described it. And he walked in and he goes, and there was a guy sitting there getting his palm read or some bullshit, his words. And he says, I literally grabbed that guy by his shirt and threw him out and said, goodbye, closed the door. And I sat down. He goes, and I played the role of tough guy, He goes, and I cleared her desk off. And I said, read my fortune. And she's like in shock. And she's like, okay. He goes, read my fortune or I'll break your big neck. How about that? And she laughed at him. And she stood up and she's like, get the hell out of here before I kill you. He goes, and I stood up and I thought, this frail, small, abuelita, this old grandma, what's she going to do? All this gossiping that they're always doing, these old hens, he said. He goes, what are they going to do? Vieja chismoso, as they say in Spanish. She's one of those gossipers, always talking, telling things, telling everybody stuff about people because she knew about it. She had an ability and she used it. She kept a file on everybody in her head, like rumors. She spread rumors like lice, like children spread lice from their hair in school. Viejos in your head. And he told her, he's like, I'm not scared of you, bitch. He's like, and I mean what I'm telling you. He's like, how do you know Irina? She's like, I don't know what you're talking. He's like, you're a liar. He goes, and I would never put my hands on a woman, but at that moment in time, he's like, I wanted the truth. He goes, and I reached over and I grabbed her by her face. And he goes, and her face changed immediately. He's like, and I was looking at a full-on lizard. It was a lizard person, purple, bluish, purple tongue that came out and was flopping around. And she was like speaking to him like something from another world. And she was like, let go of me now. And he let go very quickly and he backed up. He goes, dude, I fell over the chair. I got back up, tried to keep tough. And then she zipped around the desk. And at this point, she didn't have a gown on or anything. She was just a straight up lizard standing on two legs staring at me. And she grabbed me and threw me against the wall and then pinned me against the door. And there was somebody knocking on the door. He goes, and she punched the door. And she's like, go away. He goes, and I heard whoever it was just running down the stairs. The voice that came out of her, I can't even do it justice. And he said he couldn't either. He said it was like the devil. And he said at that moment in time, he goes, I knew something was wrong. Not just in the mistake that I made in coming here, but that I had stepped in something much bigger than myself. Much worse than I could ever possibly imagine. And she dropped him. And she backed up. She turned around, put her gown back over herself, did this kind of shaky, weird, vibrating thing, and then turned around and looked human again. But like a young woman. And she sat there. And he goes, and I'm not going to lie, she was very attractive. But I knew it was not real. And she says, I'm going to smoke this cigarette, this frajo. When I'm done, if you don't leave, I'm going to kill and eat you. As simple as that. So he said, he goes, okay. So he's like, I'm going to give you this one warning. Leave Mexico and don't ever come back. And she said, if you don't, you and your whole family will be on the menu. And she asked him, do you understand? And he said, yes, I do. She said, don't worry about where we come from. Don't worry about who we are. Just leave. And she stood up and she was like, your aunt asked a lot of questions. She had a big mouth. He thought at that time, he's like, so do you. And like reading my mind, this woman, she could do it. He said, yes, but I have a reason. Your aunt got too curious. And he asked her a simple question. He was like, did we kill your aunt? she said this. She said yes and no. No, we didn't give her cancer, but yes, we withheld the cure. He thought about it. Not fully understanding or comprehending, because still just wrapping his mind around what had just happened to him. He walked out. He told me, he's like, Wolf, what would you have done? Perfect. Love Cat just says, good grief. I was just about to say, good grief. I don't know what I was going to do. That's weird that you did. She said, right. We're all kind of on the same wavelength here at Paranormal Roundtable. The paratroopers, we're all kind of the same here. We're on the same level. We're a pack. That's what makes us strong. That's what makes these reptiles strong too, unfortunately, is that they're all kind of in it together. But these things, they think alike, they work together, they do what they do. And I'm afraid that elements of our shadow government, military, whatever, may work with these things. The same branch that turns harmless dogs into soldiers, weapons, teaching dolphins how to disarm bombs and whatever the hell else they do. Who knows what's really in charge of the industrial complex, the military? All we can do is speculate as plebeians, civilians. We're not the privileged class. But he said one thing to her. He told her goodbye. And he says, I'm going to leave Mexico. He's like, but I promise you, if anything happens to anyone in my family, I will come back. And I know where you're at. I know you or exist here. You're here. You've been here for years, since I was a child. And you're not going anywhere. You'll have to relocate because I will find you. He's like, and there's enough of us that know your little secrets. And she just kind of laughed, cackled like a witch that she was. And he walked out, trying to play tough. He said, as I'm walking down the stairs, I felt like I was walking on linguine noodles. My legs were shaking. My body was convulsing, and I was in a sort of shock. I stumbled down the stairs, sweat pouring from my body. And I cried. And I went to my dad and I told him, I said, Father, I have to leave. Going back to the States. He says, where are you going? He says, I don't know, probably Houston. I got a job offer there. I'm going to go work for a while with my friend Sam. And this is where it gets really interesting. Not that it's not already interesting, but follow me on this one. He said, I left. He's like, I left Mexico. And I haven't been back since. You know, he was in his 30s when he left, his late 30s. He's in his mid 40s now. And he's like, I have no plans to ever go back. I send money to my dad. He's elderly now. My siblings are there. They take care of him. But I'll never go back to Mexico. And he speaks good English. It's not, I mean, you wouldn't even, like, you would think he was a Mexican American and not a Mexican national. But he said, the minute that I got back to the States, he's like, I get out of the airport in Houston and my friend Joe picks me up. We call him Jojo, but his name is Jose. He's like, then I turn on YouTube and there's Josh Turner talking about werewolves on Paranormal Roundtable. He told his friend, he said, man, I love listening to this guy. He's amazing. So his friend, shout out to you too, Jose. And you guys are going to be listening tonight. Sorry, I started a little bit late, like an hour later than I was supposed to. I hope you guys are still up. But the thing is, he said, I never thought I would see what I saw. The very first day on the job, he's like, I got really, really tired. He goes, and I told my friend, and my friend's very understanding. He goes, I had jet lag. I was tired. I wasn't feeling good. He's like, and I said, look, I need to take a nap. He goes, I go and lay in the truck and take a nap. And I had a weird dream. And in this dream, there was a knocking on the glass. He goes, and I go to look, and I see this lizard looking in at me, and then it's just gone. And I asked him, I said, what did they look like to you? What did the ones that you saw? I mean, he told me about the ice cream vendor and his friend seeing the flying thing. But what did the woman look like? And he said it was like when I was looking at her as a kid, but it was like, complete yellow eyes, slits that were red, not black. Scales, yellowish green scales. Head had little nodules on it like horns. Like there were 3 on each side. He said, but I couldn't see it to the back. Maybe there were more. I don't know. Thank you for that donation. So he goes, I see this weird, it's Satyam Ja. Yeah. Thank you for that donation. And he said it was weird. He's like, and all I felt was this overwhelming dread and fear and sadness, which seemed to embolden this being. Yeah, Shade Viking, Darth Maul. Some people have said that. He's like, and this thing had a bit of a snout, short, muzzled snout thing. He's like, and so I'm on this job site. He's like, and one of the guys that was working on this job site, I open my eyes after the weird dream and I see the taco truck. He's like, and I get out to get something to eat. I haven't eaten in 3 days. Stomach's in knots. And he said, dude, I go to the taco truck and I talk to them. I said, hey, I'm a little bit short today. Can I pay you back tomorrow? And he said, sure. He says, and one of the guys that comes up to me was from Tlaxcala, and I was shocked to see him there. But I forgot, my friend Joe, he probably hired other people from where I was from. And he goes, oh, what's up, man? He goes, and so we talked a little bit. He was working on the other side. He was an electrician. And he said, yeah, well, let's get together tonight and drink some Modelo, some Dos Equis, whatever. And he said, sure, good thing, sure thing, whatever. So that night, they go to their apartment, and it's out in Katy, which is, we've talked about before, people have seen dogmen. And in particular construction site. This isn't it. This is a different place. This was a few years ago. And he's like, we started talking and we started laughing and remember when, we began to talk about these weird people. And his friend said, didn't you and Mario have something weird happen? Like it was an ice cream guy or something, And he says, yeah. He says, yeah, I think I had the same thing happen to me. He's like, and I wanted to tell you, I went on a date with that girl, Irina, before you ever got with her. And he's like, and I wanted to be straight with you, She put off the veneer like that she was, a good, sweet, wholesome person, but she's not. She's not who she appears to be. And he goes, oh, I know, I figured it out. He said, yeah. He said, she once told my friend who she dated for a little while that she killed a man. And he was shocked. And Rafino was like, what? He said, yeah. He made her mad one time. He goes, and she grabbed him by the throat and pinned him down to the seat of his truck and threatened to eat him, to consume him like a cannibal. And she told him, she said that one time when she was down in the southern part of Mexico where she was from, that she had killed and eaten a man, and that's why she had to leave. And when she did this, she was a teenager. And she was there with her real family, who were Mayan, pure-blooded Mayans. And she said that she went to go live. This is what she told this guy. She went to go live with the others that were literally the remnants of the Aztec people. And she told him a bunch of crazy crap as he was driving her back into town. That her and her people controlled everything. And that only some of them lived on the surface. And that the first time she knew what she was and that she changed, she was 6 years old. And that her whole village down in the jungle, in the Yucatan, were literally shape-shifting reptiles. And that they worshipped a god called Marzan, who, for all intents and purposes, looked like a demonic chameleon. And he lived within the earth. And that Marzan had actually brought the Aztec people to their home of Mexico City with the purpose of dominating the region and providing food for them. They cut out the still beating heart, just like the Mayans did for Kukulkan. The body was cast down the ziggurat where these reptilian hybrids would take them, pile them up, cutting off choice cuts for themselves because they were all cannibals, and then taking the rest to the underworld to be eaten by Marzan and his people. And the blood flowed like wine. And they drank this blood and it sustained them because they, according to Rafino believes, and what I do too, they are a blood-drinking race of lizards. They are vampiric lizards. Now, the reptilians are not necessarily vampires, and vampires are not necessarily reptilians, but somewhere the vampires polluted this subterranean realm. And the remnants of the Aztecs and the Mayans, which still exist, well, that's what they are. Interesting theory, crazy story, but if I told you this wasn't the first time I've heard this, you probably wouldn't be surprised. But here's what happened. Get this. His second day on the job, they're driving into the job site. And he sees what looks like a wolf on two legs drop down on all fours and run across the job site and go behind one of these earth movers. He couldn't believe it. He looked at Jojo and he was like, "Did you just see that?" And Jose was like, "Yeah, I did." It had no sooner than they drove over there to go look. And it's like 6 a.m. He's like, we're sitting there drinking our coffee, trying to wake up. And we see this wolf, werewolf, whatever the hell it looked like, a creature. He's like, and then we go to the other side, there's nothing there. About an hour later, everybody's showing up, everybody's there. He goes, my friend comes in. He's like, and he was drunk the night before. He's like, me, I had a couple beers, and that was it. I was ready to work. He had gotten his citizenship, by the way, years before. And he told me, he says, I could come and go as I please. He's like, and I was seriously at that point considering not being afraid and just going back home and staying there. and confronting these people, because there were other people that were sick and tired of their shit and was like, you know what? We're not going to live in fear of these beings, these monsters. And so he said his friend came to him and he told him, he grabbed him by the arm and he told him this. He said he had told them what he saw in the morning. And he said, yeah. He goes, that's the first thing I noticed when I came here. And he's like, you got to pick your poison, dude. Because he says, up here, you have elements from down there, and they do the same thing up here, except they look like wolves. Down there, they're lizards. It's the same shit. And his friend told him something that always stuck with him. He said that was his last day on that job, and he moved up to the Fort Worth area, and he hasn't gone back since. He said, they're all in it together. He's like, don't talk too much about what you see, because you don't know if who you're talking to is a legitimate person. So the rest of his life, the last few years, he's been just kind of, whatever. Listens to the show. Been listening since our inception in 2019. He found me in 2017 on another show, of course. And finally, he got up the nerve to talk to me and told me all of this stuff, which happens quite a bit. People will start talking and they'll just, I got a lot to just tell you. And then they just start telling you. And it's just a big avalanche of information. Here at PRT, we take it all seriously. Some people think that, well, you're naive. You shouldn't take everybody's story at face value. Who am I to say that they're lying? And who am I to say that they're telling the truth? All I do is relay it to you and you make up your own mind. But when you put the pieces together, it starts to make sense. The stories that we're getting now about vampires coming left and right. And I'll say this. Some of them, I think people wouldn't have even called them that because they didn't know what the hell they were dealing with. They didn't know what they were. But when we started saying, hey, they're vampires, then other people started saying, yeah, that's what I'm seeing. Now, people's definition of vampires can be different. Some people think that they look like Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt, or they look like Twilight. Or some people think they look like Nosferatu or Bram Stoker's Dracula. Who knows what they look like or what the, doesn't matter what we think or whatever. It matters what is. And I can't tell you what vampires are supposed to look like or what they, really are. All I know is that they are. And I don't know what werewolves really, where they come from originally or whatever. But do I believe in these things? Yes, I do. Absolutely. I wouldn't be talking about it. This is not a joke to me. This is not a fantasy fairy tale time. This is me sharing people's information with you, the audience. And it is in an entertaining way. And I'm not here to be a therapist for anybody. I don't pretend that. But I do think it's important. And I've definitely struck a nerve. Because if I didn't, I wouldn't be getting so much hate. People chuckle and laugh. They chuckled and laughed at the guy who said, hey, we should wash our hands. He said, maybe these germs are invisible. And they're making us sick. And people said, that is absolutely ridiculous. I'm going to keep going to the restroom and then cutting meat and eating it and doing whatever the hell other nasty crap. And I'm just going to take my chances because what you're saying is too hard to believe. You're just a party pooper. There's no invisible things on our hands making us sick. That's ludicrous. Questions? If you have questions and maybe there's something I may have missed, put them in all caps. Yeah, and Scorpion, you've definitely done a lot of work in the department of the vampires. You've definitely put a lot of time and energy into reading about them and learning about them. There are no experts, but I would say when it comes to vampires, there are a couple people that I turn to for information. And I've noticed our critics too have gotten more loud, more vocal, and more ridiculous. Please hit the like button if you haven't. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you're listening and you're lurking and you're not in the chat and you just hear whatever. And if you want to be a part of the chat, well, you got to be a subscriber. And so, thank you to those who donated and thank you to everyone who's subscribed. Look. Something's odd with our subscriber count. It's like dropped down by it's like 3 times less than what it was, which is really odd. It just happened suddenly. We were 3 away from 34,800, and now we're 6 away. So people actually went and unsubscribed during the show. Yeah, okay, I believe that. Well, whatever. Something janky going on. That's a good question. Mitchell Best says, do you think there are actual hunters, slayers of the paranormal? Yes, I do. And some I do believe are commissioned by the Vatican. Mike says, thank you for another great PRT show. James Bistido says, how big do you think Hollow Earth is? Well, I don't know. I think it's gigantic. I think it's bigger than the surface. David Buckholt says, people, okay, yeah, that sucks. I've had a lot of people telling me that when they come back, they're unsubscribed. So I don't know. I guess we'll see what's going to happen. And Anthony, if you're there, if you're modding or whoever is, put the link to our PayPal. If you're interested in donating, you can always do it through PayPal. You don't have to do a live. You don't have to do it today, right now. You don't have to do it in the live chat. You can do it through the PayPal link or whatever. We can post it on there. Yeah, see. Shelly Lay says, I was unsubscribed a few days ago and not of my own doing. It's happening to all the different variety of channels I listen to. We were at 2.6 thousand subscribers every 28 days, and now we're down to 800. I don't know what's going on. There's the link right there. I have talked to a hunter, and well, it's funny that you said hunter slayer because I've talked to one person who claims to be a hunter that hunts werewolves, and another one that supposedly slays vampires. But I didn't really know. I don't want to be. I'm not going to say their names, and they probably won't like that I say this about them. But one of them is in particular sounded really hokey, and I just didn't even. We didn't even talk about it because it sounded too far fetched. But there is somebody who has interviewed them, and I'm going to get him on the show coming up real soon. We're going to talk with him about it. I can't remember who we got this week. It's kind of in a weird situation too, where if I let people tell their stories, and I get a lot of complaints, people saying that they want me to retell stories, but then I have to let people tell their stories too, because there's some people who just want to tell their story themselves, and that's totally cool. No problem with that. But then I get a bunch of complaints about how, well, I don't like the way you tell it. Well, it doesn't matter. We notice something though, when we do interview people, the show doesn't do as well. When people are on as guests, it doesn't do as well as when I retell encounters. I don't know why that is. Tori says, did I miss the vampire segment? Tonight we talked about vampires, werewolves, and reptilians. The segment, if you want to call it on the vampire, was basically just these are reptilians that live within the earth and they drink blood and they're vampiric. And now we know that they're not all that way. There are different kinds. And we talked. Now, Tori, what I would encourage you to do, and what I encourage everybody to do, and this isn't a plug for the show because I don't care. This is just the way it is. Go from start to finish and listen to every episode you can, especially the live streams, but also go back to the podcast episodes that also appear on YouTube and listen to those hour-long shows. They all kind of blend together and feed into one another, including the books that I've written. And also the book, the new one that's going to come out, the vampire book, which I've already wasted time writing 2 others that are not going to ever probably be released because of unfortunate circumstances. One of them being MK Ultra, and the other one being about the alien agenda. It can't help the circumstances and the way things fell, so I'm kind of behind now because I wasted time with those. And witnesses backing out the last minute of the MK Ultra thing, and then the UFO book was not completed because it was a project I had with someone else, and they had to go back home out of the country, and so it's kind of left me in limbo with that. So that being what it is, I have now turned to trying to write a vampire book, but that's taking a long time, and I'm in need of help cataloging the live streams, and I'm not getting it. I've asked several people, and so I'm probably just going to have to literally take time out of my life to just do it myself. And I say that because I don't have a lot of time because I'm running 2 businesses, and then I'm doing the show, and I do not have the kind of time to go back and re-listen to every show and try to, remember which episodes are what. So I'm going to have to hire somebody to just sit there and catalog that. And so far, everybody I've tried to hire has just kind of like, well, just haven't done it. I mean, I don't know. I just don't do it. So getting texts from work too right now. So Tori, what I would suggest to you is to go back and listen to as much as you can of the show, and it'll bring it all together, and you'll catch up to where we're at right now. New listeners may feel a little overwhelmed or lost because we're moving at a pretty quick clip, because we have a pretty stable audience. And here's the thing, there's all this hate that comes our way, And they say all the most ridiculous things. Like these people, they're like, oh, he's going live at 2 a.m. because he wants people to, pay attention to him, or he wants people to give him money or whatever the hell. It's like, if these people really knew like the truth, they would shut their mouths. Or maybe then again, they're mentally ill. They probably can't. But nothing could be further from the truth when I'm trying to bring that to you. It has nothing to do with me trying to get money. It has nothing to do with me, just wanting to be seen or heard. That is not the case. It is about the information that comes and me telling it and people's encounters and their stories. And especially when someone, like whenever Rafino told me this story, and this is something that I'm really good at, and I'm not trying to say that I'm the master, because some people are like, I'm the best storyteller ever. Yeah, you're full of shit. But what I can tell you is this. When he told me this story, it wasn't one long fluid piece. He kind of jumped around like people do when you interview them or they get on the show, whatever. Yeah. I mean, it's not all one fluid timeline. I put it together, and that's what I call fleshing it out. And I tell people, just talk, say what you got to say, do what you got to do. I can record you, or I can write it down, or whatever. If you're not feel comfortable with me recording it, whatever, I don't care. However you want to tell the story. Now, if you have a story to tell me, and there's thousands of you that do, well, tell me. Send me what you have, and if it's something that you need to talk to me about, that's perfectly okay. Some people are visual learners, some people are audio learners. I'm both. Now, I had to learn to be a better audio learner, but I have become that. And if you have a high enough, I don't want to say IQs, and then again, it sounds like you're talking like they don't get it. These haters, these little retards, they don't understand that their brains are not, they're probably about as big as this, and they don't grasp, they don't understand. So what it is if you have the acumen, I don't know what, if I don't say like the IQ, okay, I was going to say it, then you can learn to train yourself to learn in other ways, like learn to learn, if that makes any sense. And it's something that I believe anybody can really do if they just put their mind to it. Focusing yourself, which is something also as a hyperactive child, I had to learn to focus, putting that energy into something, latching on and locking on. And that's something in and of itself that can be said for somebody who was born with ADD and has a hyperactive, mind and their hyperactivity. And they just, their brain is bouncing all over the place, which mine was. And just being able to focus it and bringing your ki, or chi, as they say in Chinese, is ki in Japanese. I prefer to say ki. I think it sounds cooler. But ki, and just focusing it, and making that energy be a part of who you are and absorbing it into your essence and using it where it never leaves. And you'll always have it. Now, you might not always have it on the surface, just bam, bam. But, you have to learn, and you have to train yourself to memorize things. And people are ultimately mentally lazy. One of the things, and I mentioned this guy earlier, Lab Blackburn, and he was somebody that I talked to at length about what he used to do for a living. He was an English major, but he wasn't using his degree. Now he's writing books and stuff, but he's really kind of a rock star guy. He has a band called, oh God, what's called Drink with the not Drink with the Ghoul Town. Sorry. So his band Ghoul Town, that became like his, kind of his thing. But his dad told him, hey, you got a degree in English, use it. So he did. And so one of the things that he used to do before he decided to really do something with himself is he would read manuals. And what I mean is, like, he worked at a job where they would give him something to put together, a huge 3-dimensional project, and then they would give him the manual, and he would just have to sit there and read through it and follow the instructions and the directions to a T, and then put this thing together. And he did that for hours and hours and hours. You can imagine how tedious that is, and the amount of brain power that it takes to actually be able to sit there through a mind-numbing process of having to memorize and learn and read and do all this. And most of us would just be like, give up and go work another job. Because having to sit there and read instruction manuals and put together elaborate pieces of things would be it would be hard. And the mentally lazy are not going to do those things. Learning how to learn, that's a big part of it. It's interesting that Charles mentions that Wendigo. One of the stories I got recently was of a Wendigo. At least I think it was. Unfortunately, the first person that told me about it, she didn't give me all the details. She left the part out about the horns because she thought that it sounded unbelievable. And that if she told me that part of the story, that I would be like, oh, I don't believe you now. And so her sister started telling me the rest of the story. And it ended up becoming like a whole ordeal. And I was like, wait a minute. This part was not told to me. And Josh says he's at work. See, people can listen while they're at work on YouTube. They said, I don't listen to the YouTube because I'm at work. What? Do you need to look at me? You don't need to look at me. You just hear what I'm saying. Like, I listen to the podcast because I'm at work. Well, Josh listens to me on YouTube right there. He's got the coolest name ever because his name is Josh. Madeline says, if you have a question, put it all in caps. Oh, that's interesting, Zoe. She says, I have a brain abscess and was in a coma for months. I woke up different. It took a huge effort to get to where my brain is today, and I had to learn how to learn. That's interesting. You know, when your brain becomes damaged, the neural pathways in your brain will find a way to connect. It's a very interesting thing. People don't understand that. Like people who get hit in the head. I've been hit in the head a bunch of times. And I've been concussed. Now, I haven't been knocked unconscious. One time in my life, I was a child, and I don't remember because, but I just know that it was from my dad. Like he pretty much, I just saw a white flash, and then I was out. He came home drunk one day, and my dad was not an alcoholic. Okay, and that's another thing. I'm not even going to give him a pass for that because he wasn't a drunk or a drug addict. He just did what he did out of pure freaking meanness. Because he was a mean bastard and still to this day is an unrepentant mean bastard. And so the day he picks up the phone and calls me, and I'll answer, I will. And he tells me I'm sorry, and I'll forgive you. I already forgive you. I already did. But don't think we're going to be friends. But I'll listen to you. I gave my enemies that much. I could give it to my own dad, but that doesn't mean that we're going to be friends. But that's never going to happen because he's not that kind of person. He did nothing wrong. So why would he? Slippy Second says, what are your thoughts on the Glimmer Man in connection to Bigfoot? Yep. And my thoughts are that they could be cloaking, or it could be the interdimensional, or how I see this thing. Well, Scorpion, we understand that because you're working. He says, sometimes I have to listen while I'm at work, making sure someone on the property is not breaking any property rules or laws on the property while I watch here. Yeah. You also have a bunch of a tribe of savages that are whatever, homeless, crazy people who will attack you at the moment's notice. I saw that when I pulled in, and one of them was urinating on the wall. Then he turned and charged at my truck and was probably going to try to assault me, Nellie, and Anthony if I hadn't stepped out of the truck and, dealt with him. This is interesting. David says, I had a traumatic brain injury and couldn't speak. Rather, the words I was thinking would not come out of my mouth for weeks. I had to learn to recover as well. And I want to say something else too, folks. I was not trying to get money or to make a flex on the community as I was accused of by going live at 2 a.m. and putting 400 or 500 people in the chat. Who the hell does that? What kind of sickness do they see in me that I'm just like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to flex on the community. I'm just going to go ahead and do live, and everybody's just going to have to deal with it. You better show them, I'll drag you out of bed. Like I said the other night, like, what am I doing? Hear ye, hear ye. I'm going live. You better show up and support the king. You call yourself a patriot and loyal subject of the crown. Call myself subject to much at all. And there's the Patreon or whatever, or the PayPal. We have a Patreon too. I don't know what the link is. If Anthony or Scorp, one of y'all could put the Patreon link, it's not on here. But you can join the Patreon. It's a good way to support the show, and you get a T-shirt. You get if you do the $10 tier, you get a free book from one of our friends, and then it's an autograph book. And then $20, you get that and a shirt. $30, you get that another book and a shirt. $40, you get those two books, one of my books, and a shirt. And then if you get the $50 tier, which is $50 a month, after 2 months, of course, this is all over 2 months. You get both of my autograph books and then 2 autograph books from different people and then a shirt. And then Anunnaki Bro says that. Tori says, I'm not familiar with Glimmerman. Is there time to touch on it a bit, please? Not really. I mean, I can tell you this. Go read the episode called The Shimmering Phantom. And Anthony named it that because I didn't let him name it The Glimmer Man. Because there's a movie called that, but it has nothing to do with that. But then there's also this, everybody's calling it The Glimmer Man, The Glimmer Man, The Glimmer Man. And I was just kind of like getting tired of hearing that name. And I said, call it anything but that. And so that was kind of where we were at with that. Thank you, Mike. He said that totally was not a flex. I don't think it was either. I thought I was doing everybody a favor by going back to, to the show so we could get some things done. Southern Colorado, James Diamond says, love your channel. I live in Southern Colorado and have heard lots of stories of Bigfoot in our mountains down here, but not much about Dogman. Are they or have you heard many stories out of this area? Yeah. We do have some Dogman stories out of Southern California, Durango. Another one was, I got one not too long ago from Pueblo. I don't know. They're all over. I mean, you get stories from all over the country of Dogmen, and I don't know what that, you don't know where they're going to show up. Can't really say there's any place that they won't show up. You know what I mean? That they're not. They're just there. Well, Maddie, go to sleep. She says, can't believe I'm still awake. Go to sleep. Get yourself some sleep. It's interesting, though, to me that that Rafino actually had this encounter with this Dogman werewolf-like creature. It was very brief. He said that it was large and almost ape-like, but it had a huge wolf-like snout and ears. So Dogman, backward bent legs because it was wolf-like and it ran behind one of the earth movers. One of the things I think that it was black. It was a black creature. They could see it, through the light. There was like a work light that was on. And the way that his friend made it sound was like it was a person. Like it was definitely a person, and it was somebody from Mexico. And he said, you need to be real careful what you say because these things are friends. I guess the way that he made it sound was like those creatures, those shapeshifters are also friends with these. Now, we've talked about this before, and I'll say it again on the show. We've talked about how these creatures there's some sort of like connection between these ones that these reptilians that show up at these computer companies, and they're all right here in Austin. And I know the heads of security to just about every one of them. Well, not now. I did, and I 2 of them have no longer. One of them went to work at another company, like an investment trading company that's very large. So he works there, and another one now works for it's a sheriff's department, whatever. So, but there's at least three of them that I do know, and how do you say, like, they will report seeing reptilian people, like, changing into like reptilians, but then at the same time, uh, outside of the campus, out in the woods and stuff, because they're always like in the middle of the woods. They'll report seeing werewolves, and they're not telling me I saw a dog man, because that's only for people in this community that really know what that word is. No, they say some shit like I saw a werewolf, and so yeah, I mean, it's a weird thing. Somebody was asking me about magnetite. This is magnetite right here. This right here. This is one. This is one of them. This is what it looks like. And then it just does like this. See how it's like a magnet? And this one will go on your ankle. This one's actually too big for my ankle, though. Like half an inch too big. But that's magnetite. And supposedly it helps ground you, and it's really good for you. Madeline says, where do you get the most reptilian reports from? Gee, that's a hard one. We'll definitely get a lot of them from Mexico. I mean, like we talked about tonight. There's like hot spots though, like Southern California, Las Vegas. You know, we have getting a lot of weird stories. I've been doing a whole thing on the ones in Las Vegas. Just kind of putting it together and seeing if I can get like enough stories. Now, Shauna, if you're out there, I know that I don't know if that's your real name. Not Shauna Groves. I just saw your name right there, but there's another name, another woman whose name is Shauna. And she's an African American girl. If you are out there, you sent me a message, and unfortunately, yours was one of the main ones I remember, because it got deleted. Along with like, I was trying to move. Oh my gosh, I hate to even have to say this. And Anthony already lost his mind about it. I was trying to move a bunch of. I'm gonna sound like such a dumbass. Emails over to a file, and I deleted them on accident because I was out. I was falling asleep. I was out on my feet. And the last one I was reading was from a girl whose name was Shauna, Shawna. And she was talking to me about something from Las Vegas. And I fell asleep. I mean, like, I deleted it. And it was something that I kind of was like, I needed that story to kind of put it together. The other guy, his name was Kent, and I believe you were from Los Angeles, and you had some information about reptilians, and you wanted to give me because you worked in a restaurant. Now get this, folks. I don't know if that's your real name or not, but I have to say this, but you worked at a restaurant where you said some really weird things were happening. There is this push now in this country. I'm going to say this. This is going to sound, wait till we go to Rumble, because I'm going to tell you a lot of stuff. They're trying to normalize cannibalism. And that's what both of these people were kind of talking about. And those emails I had put together, there were about 50 of them about reptilians. And I ended up, Scorpion says, didn't we get a story or two from Arizona? Yes. You're talking about the ones from the one from Scottsdale, and then the other one that we got from Phoenix. Well, they lived outside of Phoenix, but in the suburbs. But basically, yeah. And people don't realize how big Phoenix is. Like the 5th largest city. I believe it's in this order: New York City, Los Angeles, Chicago, Houston, and then Phoenix is like number 5. And they're very large cities, but it's nothing in comparison to like Mexico City. When you look at New York City, you think, 7.8 million people or whatever it's up to now. No, Mexico City is like 3 times that size. It's like 21 million people. It's unbelievable. Yeah, Scorp, right outside of Phoenix. Yeah, we talked about that the other day. That one was, their name was like Winona or something like that. I haven't finished that one yet. I haven't interviewed them and talked to them. Oh, Mexico City is huge. You can take an entire day from go to one side to the other. It is gigantic. Yeah, Rhonda, truth about cannibalism. Disgusting. Yeah, disgusting. Cannibals are disgusting. Who the hell eats human flesh or drinks blood? It's very specific and just about, not just in the Bible, but in every holy book on earth that you're not supposed to do that. It's just basically like a taboo. And there's all these people that were like, well, we're going to break these taboos. Taboos are there for a reason. Incest is not correct for a reason. Doing things to children is not correct, and eating people is not correct, and it shouldn't have to be said. I mean, these are like common sense things, dude. Like, why would we have to, as a society, remind each other, hey, probably shouldn't be eating things or hurting children or beating women or abusing animals. These should be just like common sense things that say, hey, maybe if I do this, I'm a effed up sociopath. Wish every sociopath on earth would just take care of themselves and go and stand in front of a whatever. But we can't depend on that because they're too in love with themselves. They don't do that. They don't take themselves out. It's very rare that sociopaths will ever actually kill themselves. That is a real thing. A lot of them are terrified, like Ted Bundy. When the bastard was being, put to death, he was all, crying and whimpering like a little bitch. Couldn't have been more happy. Even as a child, I knew what he had done. And I remember them putting on the McDonald's thing or whatever, free fries when Bundy fries. And I wake up, and it was like 1989. And correct me if I'm wrong what year it was. It might have been 87. No, it was in the mid to late 80s, something. I wake up, and they're like, Ted Bundy is now dead. Somebody in the chat can tell me when it happened. But I just remember waking up to go to school. I was like in 7th grade or 6th grade or some shit. And I just remember him being dead, and we were at school, and I was like, good, I'm glad he's dead. He killed all those women, and he's a piece of shit. And then these women, in particular women, I don't know why, but they throw themselves at these serial killers because I guess they exude some sort of demonic reptilian alpha male something or another that comes off of these bastards. I don't know. I don't know why you would be into, like, I can understand being into the bad boy or the bad guy, but these are not bad boys, bad guys. These are satanic evil people, okay? These are basically reptilians walking around as humans, killing and eating people, okay? That's what they did. They did this gross shit like Jeffrey Dahmer. They're like, oh, he was misunderstood. Really? You think his victims and their families think that? Oh, he was just misunderstood. He just wanted to see what meat tasted like. It was on a person. Because I've never wanted to know. 89. I guess I was right the first time. Yeah. 89. So I never have had the desire to, you know what? I just like to find out what human flesh tastes like. Why would you want to do that? And how sick would you have to be? And if you feel that way, then you probably are a sick person. I'm sorry to tell you. Well, sorry, not sorry. So I said 89 at first. Yeah, I was correct. I wake up and I just remember they were like, Ted Bundy is now dead. And I'm like, good. I'm tired of hearing about this bastard. Sick of it, and them glorifying him. And they were talking about all these women. They were like, oh, he was so handsome. Like, what are you looking at? He looked like a little lizard, a little beak-nosed, pointy-nosed lizard. It was just an ugly, gross little dude. I mean, and he thought he was so smart. He was his own lawyer. He defended himself. Well, he did a great job, Ted. Okay? Enjoy hell. Room to the depths of hell where the rest of your whack-ass homeboys dwell. Where you belong. I don't feel bad for these people at all. Well, you should pray for them. Some people are beyond redemption and they were born that way. I feel that. I don't care. And I have no feeling or sympathy for them whatsoever. Because they earned it. And in some cases, people can it is just your opinion, like especially when it comes to politics. People are like, well, I hate this current president. Well, I hate the former president. And both sides will say, well, that person deserves this, or they should be that, or they should, like, they're glad to see them go to jail or whatever it is they want to do. That's your opinion. Okay. And that is an opinion. You can say, yeah, they did these things, they did that. What I'm talking about are people where it's very cut and dry. Okay. John Wayne Gacy, right? Samuel Little. If you haven't heard of Samuel Little, he's now the most prolific serial killer. He's an African-American guy. who's confessed to the killing over 100 women. And the lead singer for our lead guitarist for Weezer, his wife was on a documentary where she interviewed this guy and got good with him. And he admitted to all these women that he choked. He said he saw a snake choke a woman in a movie picture when he was a kid. And it turned him on, gave him some kind of feeling. So then he decided to go and start doing it. And every time he choked the life out of a woman, he felt good. So he just kept doing it. And then you got to wonder how many of these serial killers are running around that really didn't make the big headlines, like Herb Baumeister from Fox Hollow Farms. And we had Anna Choate on here where she did the investigation of his estate. That bastard, they found 50 different people on his farm, the DNA of 50 different people from the bone fragments and things. Who knows how many he actually killed? These sick psychopaths, and people put them up on a pedestal. And that's the one knock I have on the true crime thing. I know Tex from Texas Front Porch, he does that. And it's called, what is the name of his show? Something Minds. Yeah, Rich Sykes, you're probably right. What is it called? Something Minds. I can't remember the name of it. He has a show called Something Minds. And I think that Daniel Borazon is on that show too. I think, but I'm not for sure. I've never really watched it. But I don't. People have asked me before, like about doing a show about serial killers, stuff like that, and I'm just like, I just don't really want to glorify those people, because I don't want them. They should be just thrown into the pit, and just forgotten about. Like, they were showing something the other day about. What is his name? Albert Fish. He's a horrific human being, an awful person who cooked and ate a child or something like that. And then there was that psychopath, Edward Kemper, who all the stuff these people did. I mean, and there were so many of them. There's so many of them. And it's just unbelievable. Richard Ramirez, and then Rosendo Ramirez, the railroad killer, and then there was another Hispanic one they caught recently here in Austin that they know he killed at least a dozen people. They caught him right there on the interstate in a hotel room, and you're just sitting there going like, "What in the hell, dude? These people." It blows your mind, the things that they do. Infamous Minds. There you go, Lucy. Thank you. Apologies to Tex. I'm tired. But Tex, yeah, he's got a show called Infamous Minds, and they delve into all that. And it's a subject I know a lot about. I could sit here and talk about case after case after case and and go deep into the subject, but it's not something I really care to because, like I said, I don't, like Andre Chikatilo. He's another one. He was weird in the way that he killed boys and girls, and it was like the Communist Party. They're like, oh, there's no trouble in paradise. That's not happening. He killed over 100 people. Samuel Little, of course, he's got the record now here in the United States. But then again, how many people do we know, like Arthur Shawcross? I mean, like he can't even remember how many people he killed. So we don't know. Henry Lee Lucas, he was a big liar, so we don't know the numbers on him and his buddy Otis Toole, who we're pretty sure was the ones that killed John Walsh's son. Evil bastards. And dude, I wish just to have I don't need long, just a couple minutes alone with these people, each one of them. Just put me in a room this size right here. No escape. Don't let them have doors. And just, that's it. We don't need to go through all this trial. And, they did it. They did it. I mean, they bathed in the DNA. I mean, why waste the tax dollars money? Why waste anything on these people? We're too nice. And in Europe, they're even nicer. Like they'll let some serial killer be in there for 10 years and they'll be like, okay, well, you seem to be okay now. You're good to go. Well, don't go and kill any more people. You dumb Swedes. What the hell's wrong with you? You let these monsters run back on the streets and just murder people and do whatever the shit. Stupid asses. What the hell is wrong with Europe? Idiots. Then you got the contrast, though. Like some places in Southeast Asia are like, oh, you throw a bubblegum wrapper on the ground, like Singapore. you know, like Malaysia. You throw a bubblegum wrapper, literally littering, you can get 10 years. And they'll cane you in the street. And you can take like a savage beating to take time off. I'm not joking. It's really twisted. It's like, dude, there's got to be a happy medium here. How about if you do something really bad, the punishment fits the crime? You know, you throw a bubblegum wrapper on the ground, does it necessarily mean that you need to be beaten to death with a cane or locked away for the better part of your life because you stupidly threw a piece of paper on the ground? I mean, it's common sense. But that to me is part of the satanic bullshit agenda too, because, you know, common sense is out the window where everybody's making a beast of themselves. But the privileged class sits at the top and passes judgment on everyone else from their ivory towers. And of course, they're not even real people. Yeah, I said that. They're not real people. They're not. They're hybrids. They do all kinds of weird shit. That's a good question, Ace. Ace Banner, always in the chat, saying good things, or saying good things, making good statements, questions, whatever. Wolf, is it possible that all serial killers could be the wandering spirits of Nephilim? I believe they could be possessed or obsessed upon. Dahmer talked about having some sort of other that was on him, some sort of like the others, something that was just there, like trying to manipulate and control him, and that he felt like when he accepted Christ, it changed him or something. He may be one of the few that maybe felt something that maybe changed. He expressed remorse many, many times, which most of them did not. And in fact, Gacy's last words were, "Kiss my ass." He raped and murdered a lot of young men. His clown ass. The big supporter of the Democrat Party, and Ted Bundy was a big supporter of the Republican Party. In fact, he founded some group, Young Republicans of America, up in Washington when he was there, or some crap. And Gacy was like going to these Democrat fundraisers and these parties, and he was even seen with Rosalind Carter, Jimmy Carter's wife, at some fundraiser party. He took a picture with her. Yeah. So whenever a Democrat tries to say, "Oh, well, Ted Bundy was a Republican," I saw some dumb lady with a bumper sticker that said that. "Remember, Ted Bundy was a Republican." And I pulled up next to her, and I was like, and I went like, "Hey," she rolled her window down. I go, "John Wayne Gacy was a Democrat." She goes, "Ah," and she took off. And I'm like, oh, she started convulsing. And I'm like, it's just the truth. I mean, just when you think your side is the better side, well, somebody on your side takes a big shit. How about they're both jacked up and they just take your money? BTK was just up the road from me. The identity reveal stunned the whole community. Yeah, because wasn't he like a police officer? They masqueraded around as children of light. And honestly, a lot of times it's not those people that are just upfront and honest about stuff. It's these fakers. They have this veneer, like I said, of this wholesomeness, and they're monsters. They're absolute monsters. Yeah, that's another reason why I want to get Anna Choate back on the show. She did an investigation of the John Wayne Gacy property. Now, they tore the old house down and they built another house, but it's still there. It's the house where, on top of where he killed all those people. And he didn't just kill them there. He killed them at other places, but then he threw the bodies in the crawl space. 33 victims, but there were more because he said himself he didn't remember them all. Really, really sick, twisted people. And like I said, we could talk about these people all day long, but let's move on to something else. I get pissed off when I think about these people. The senseless, needless murder of people. The Iceman, he had a crossbow and he wanted to test it. So he just randomly walked up to a guy, or he drove up to a guy that was jogging and just shot him in the chest with it and killed him. The guy was like, he had a family and whatever. You just murdered that dude randomly just to test out a crossbow. And then another one, a bouncer threw him out of a club. So he walked in, opened the door of this busy nightclub that was music and everything, and just shot the guy in the head, and then just with his hand, boom, and then walked back out. And for years, it was unsolved until he admitted he did it. But it's like, you're proud of yourself for doing that shit. And then he was crying in the hospital about they were trying to kill him. I hope they did. You know, I hope that you suffered. You're all bastards. You burn in hell. That's what you get. I have no sympathy for you at all. None whatsoever. And you'd want to beat their ass and hurt them, but it's nothing compared to what's going to happen to them when they cross over. So just get them dead so that we don't have to suffer them and that they can go and start being punished properly. My opinion. Very, very interesting statement. See, this is why PRT has, in my opinion, the best listeners. Rhonda Starr says, is it possible any of serial killers' stories are psychological operations? Interesting. I have a little dumb shit that keeps telling me that if I quit, he's going to kill me. I'm like, go ahead and try it. You can try. You little punk. But you have to get close enough to me to do it. You know, even to shoot me, you have to be somewhere. You little punk. So keep threatening me. I'm not going to quit, but it's not because of you. I'm going to give you a second thought. I don't give a shit about you or your stupid belief. It's nice to live in a fantasy world, isn't it? Oh, I absolutely agree with that. I've even heard people say that they're happy that Satanism. This is what somebody told me. I'm not joking. They literally tried to email me this crap, and they said that they believe in abortion, whether you believe in it or not. I'm not going to get into a political debate about it, but they said that they appreciate. They're not Satanists, but they appreciate the Satanists for their effort in keeping it legal. And you want me to respond to that? How do you want me to respond? It's wrong. You know, my body, my choice. Well, that's not your body. That baby inside your body is a whole nother life. It's not yours. So, I think there are special circumstances where there are things that have to be, whatever. But that is so rare, and if the baby, whatever but I am personally, don't get me started with that, because I'm not going to sit here and say that it is okay to do that. Now, people who have done that and they feel horrible, remorse, it's something they did when they were young. I feel horrible for them. But, they actually feel this sort of sadness and remorse about it. But to sit there and message me that, what are you trying to prove by that? Oh, well, I appreciate Satanism because of that. I talk on my show about Christ pretty much every show. Do you think that I'm going to be the person that's going to go, oh, you know what? That's okay. No, I'm not. It's just not going to happen. Yeah, they make these internet threats and they're ridiculous, and they say ridiculous, stupid things. And it's just, they're stupid. And there's so many people that are following these idiots with their dumbass egos and their big bullshit stories and their lies. Yeah, there's actually the person, I need to talk about her too. This woman that's interesting because her name is Mara. We'll call her Mara G. But what she said about my past lives was very interesting. And I'll give you the rundown of what she gave me about my past lives. Do I believe it? And no offense to you, Mara, if you're listening, but I don't know you that well to say, okay, Mara is completely honest and she's completely right about everything she said about me, because I don't know her. All I know is she sent me an email. She could be anybody. She'd be a troll. So I don't sit up here and go, 7 true stories about ghosts, because how the hell do we know? I say that all the time on the show, and people are like, he's a grifter. He's over there telling people stories, and they don't even know if they're true or not. Did I say they were? I'll tell you, I believe it. Like, maybe I believe this person because I had a chance to communicate with them. But dude, you don't know. And just like the people that made the threats, I don't know who these people are. And none of us have any clue. You don't know. And in fact, I'll take it a step further. I know my neighbors, like I know who they are, like I've met them, but do I know what's going on in their house? No, I don't. I mean, I don't hear screams and chainsaws. That's a good thing, because if I did, I'd probably be, calling the police, or if it got bad enough, maybe, probably have to do my due diligence and knock on the door. So I don't know, hell, but it just, whatever a good Samaritan would do. But, you don't know. You really don't. You don't know who the hell there's killers that could be living next door to you. So, there's that. So, folks, thank you for everybody who donated. Thank you for everybody who showed up. We had 563 people in the chat right now tonight. I'd be willing to keep going for another 20 minutes or so because I have another story I was going to tell, but I'm getting tired. Just reading some of the comments here. The reptilians had a deal with the most powerful man on earth that they would give us advanced technology for humans to eat. I've heard that too. Any other comments before we get out of here? Say it in all caps. Let me ask you this, though. Before I get out of here, I'm going to do a daytime one of these lives. And I haven't decided if I'm going to do it tomorrow during the day or maybe Thursday during the day. More than likely, it would be Thursday. I'm going to try and sleep normal today. I got a bunch of phone calls to make, and 2 of them actually involve getting encounters and stories. Liberty says, "Hey, I checked for fun, and if Dank Waters, 363,000 subs. Why are only 98 people watching his live stream now? He has a live stream going right now. Well, folks, run over there and check it out. Let's just go over there. No, don't do that, please. I mean, I don't care. I don't tell you what to do. I don't care what that dude does or says. He's got 363,000 subs. He absolutely dwarfs my channel. My channel is so small. It's so small, a channel. It's a tiny little channel. Please don't hurt my channel. Mr. Waters, please don't hurt. It's so small, my channel. Only 34,000, whatever YouTube allows me to have today. I don't know, whatever. But 63,000 subs. Are you serious, dude? There's no shame. Let's see what they got me at now. Has not moved since this show we've been on. I'm 4 people down from 34,800. I think I was moving really quickly, and they're just like, well, time to stop. Good for them. Don't care. Whatever. It is what it is. We have really good people, strong listeners. The same people always show up. We get new people to come in and ask questions. Jake S says, "Hey, Wolf, kind of out of left field, but do you got any giant catfish stories?" Actually, that's interesting. I have a friend of mine who his name is Jeff. We grew up together when we were young. And no, it wasn't Jeff that did it. It wasn't him. It was I think his name was Ivan. I can't remember. They lived in my neighborhood. One of the kids there, or maybe it was James. Anyway, we all grew up together as kids in this one neighborhood. And one of them's uncle, aunt and uncle, went fishing. And they got knocked out of their boat by what they described as a 200 to 250 pound catfish that knocked their boat over. That it rammed it. Literally. And this was in like a little offshoot of the San Gabriel River, like in a creek called Brushy Creek. And so you're sitting there going like, what the hell? And not this is the same Brushy Creek that Eric Plaza was talking about last week on Blondes and Booze. Tune in this Thursday night for with Chris Garitano on Blondes and Booze. I'll be on there. Please go like and subscribe. Those ladies do a great job. They really do. And so when the boat got hit by this giant catfish, that it was like, it was a small, boat. It wasn't like some big giant, whatever. It was like an 9 foot boat. It was big enough to put the front end of the boat in its mouth. So that's a story that came from the 80s when I was a kid. And I remember that story, and I thought, and I can't remember if it was Jeff, Ivan, or James that story came from, but it was one of their uncles. And I remember we were at Jeff's house, and that guy's uncle was there talking. And he was telling that story. I can reach out to them and ask them, but it was a humongous fish. And these catfish get big. Now, I have a friend, my friend Bones, who claims he was diving here in Lake Travis, and that one of the guys he went diving with said that he saw a catfish the size of a Volkswagen down at the bottom of the lake. You got to remember, the Lake Travis is extremely deep, and so they hang down at the bottom. Who do you think is a reptilian in charge of the world? Meaning which? Like the king of the world guy in the earth? Or what do you mean? We've talked about that before, about him. Rich Sykes says, I checked. What the count? What do you mean the count? Which count? Tyrone Tricky says, how about if you get X amount of more likes that you set, then you can tell that story? Just a thought. Well, how many likes do we got? We only have 316 likes, and we have 541 people in the chat. So he goes live at the same time I do because he thinks he's going to compete with me or something. Like, that's what he's doing? Is that what you're doing, big boy? Wow. That's no joke, Dave. He caught an 87-pound one in Kentucky. I've heard Kentucky got some big ones because of the cave systems. I would never want to swim in that water. I was talking to Barton about that the other day. Like, when we were young, we go swimming in creeks and rivers. I used to do it all the time. And some of them you can't even touch the bottom. You get in the spots, you go in and it just goes straight down. You don't know how far. Because there's cave systems here and where he's from. There's just cave systems all up underneath us. So, you don't know what the hell's in that damn water. That's a good question. James says, Bistido, James Bistido, what do these reptilians even want? What's their goals? Control, a food supply and control. Oh, my sub count? Yeah. So it just jumped to 330 people. Well, I mean, I don't have that kind of thing going on where I could just go and let's throw money into it and make it happen. Not going to do that. I'd go and look, but I can't stomach to hear the guy talk. He's so full of shit. He calls me Nacho because he probably wants to eat me. But he's just one of many angry, disgruntled haters. There'll be more. There'll be plenty more. Liberty says the biggest blue cat caught in the U.S. was 143 pounds. Wow. That's a good. Junior says if you watch the movie They Live, your reptilian question will be answered. That's probably right. Oh, yeah. Jeremy Wade. Whatever a catfish can fit in its mouth, it'll eat. So if this thing's big enough, it'll eat. It'll eat you. I mean, there was a story that I got here in Lake Travis. There's a bunch of girls, and one of them was a bartender at my friend's club, and one of the girls that she was with got her leg, got grabbed by one of these catfish and pulled under the water, and it had most of her leg. She's not a real big girl, but I didn't know her personally. I met her one time. I saw her. I didn't really talk to her, but it grabbed her by her leg and pulled her down, and she nearly drowned. Well, this catfish tried to eat her, but it wouldn't let go of her leg. But luckily, there was a couple of guys there. They were pretty strong, and they were on the party boat with them, and they jumped into the water, and they literally pulled her, like they pulled this catfish off of her leg. It's cut her leg up pretty good, though. It scarred it up. And when she wears shorts, you could see the scars. So. Oh, Josh Castro. What was that? Holy crap. Went swimming in a lake once. Found a big rock I could stand on in the middle until it started moving. Big alligator snapping turtle. I freaked out. I bet you did. I'd freak out too. I wouldn't even be standing on that because you don't know what that is, man. I grew up around all these rivers, lakes, and creeks around here, dude, and swimming in them and stuff. Alligator gar. I think it was about 12 feet. And I'm not kidding. It was twice the size of me. And it swam right by me. And I got up out of that water so fast. That was in the San Gabriel. That's crazy stuff, man. All right, folks. I'm out of here. Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you want to check out my books, Dogman and the Werewolves and the Dogman Phenomena, it's on Amazon. The Bigfoot Phenomena is on Amazon. Trying to remember. Don't forget to like and subscribe to Patreon. We have the Patreon where you can help support the show, or you can go to the PayPal and help support the show. Thank you to everyone who donated. Thank you for everybody who showed up. Please hit like on your way out, though, please, because we get thousands of views on the show, and the likes, there's never as many likes. I don't know why. It's like that with everybody's channel, across the board. They'll have like 275,000 people that will views and like 10,000 likes. Never is even, you know. I don't know why that is. But thank you for everybody that showed up. And keep your eyes peeled. They walk among us. But please, don't go and mess with these people or try to do anything to them. Okay? Please don't do that because that's not correct. You don't know 100%. Just be careful. Thank you and good night. Probably Thursday during the day, because tomorrow during the day I got a lot to do. So expect a live stream Thursday during the day. And then I'll be on Blondes and Booze Thursday night. Oh, wait, let me ask this question before we go. What about, would you guys rather me do another nighttime, like maybe after Blondes and Booze, I can just go live and you guys can join me Thursday night? Or would you rather me do it Thursday during the day? Because I have a lot. I'm behind. I'm so far behind, even though I'm going to be sick. I deleted hundreds of emails. I sat there clicking this stupid, like a dummy, clicking them, you know. Not one of my more intelligent moments, I can tell you that. And then I deleted them. They were in the junk. And what it was is a bunch of emails who had gone into the junk. And then I went in and I ended up, I'm going to move them over to the, you know, and then I deleted them. So if you sent me an email, maybe send it to me again. This was like a week ago. So if you sent it last week, don't worry about it. And, I feel like I'm going to be sick when I think about it. We've already lost a bunch of them, too. But anyway, crying over spilled milk. We just got to keep moving. What do you guys think? Nighttime? Love Cat says, I'd be happy with either. Now, you're the night crowd, right? So you're going to say night, but the daytime people are probably like, nah, do it during the day. This is interesting. In the middle of all the nighttime, Scorpio says day. Why would that be, Scorp? So you can sleep at night when you're on post? So you don't have to moderate? He's played yourself, homie. Homeboy played himself. He's like, oh, do it during the day when I'm awake. Not at night while I'm at work, asleep. You would think you're at night, you're working at night, Scorp. You would want me to do it at night so that you could like have something to do and be awake and at night. But instead, you're clamoring for the daytime. Shame on you, my friend. You need to keep your eyes open and peel for your job. I like what Ace says here. There's nothing to watch yesterday evening. Nobody was on YouTube at all. That's not true, Audacious Amber. Tonight, DMR was on, and then last night we had Tex. Tex was on. And I think Hellbent Holler's on Mondays too. Now, we're gearing up to do a collaboration with somebody. I don't want to give it away, but we're getting ready to go and do a couple different investigations. The money, at least part of it, not all of it, but some of the money we had to use for the camera fund, we had to turn it into a legal fund because these people want to mess around and play games and talk trash. And not going after them for anything they said that was true. Just the slander, libel, and defamation. You'd get tired of it. And honestly, if they'd have just kept it to me instead of messing with my wife and my nephew, then I probably wouldn't even have cared. I don't give a damn what you say about me. You ain't gonna stop me. You can talk all the shit you want about me. Look at the count, homie. 494 people. I'm here at 1:31 a.m. We had 560 something people here earlier. You ain't hurting me. I don't give a shit what you say about me. You can call me everything you want. Talk about me all day long because all you do is talk about me. You make me get more stuff. Because people are going to leave yours deal and come to me. Why are they going to eat a stale cheeseburger when they could have steak? I'm not going to do that. It's an old saying, but it's true. Debbie Cothra says, I'm retired, so anytime is good for me. I love the show. Thank you, Debbie. And Audacious Amber says, like some nights I have to decide between people. Well, if you ever have to decide between me and anybody else, I don't mind. I mean, if you help out some of the smaller channels, that's okay. Just come back and watch mine later. Give me the views, you know. Well, that's everybody, Amber. She says I still have to do things, you know, whatever everybody does. You can't just sit there and watch YouTube all day long, you know. And remember, we're shooting for the second Saturday in May. And the first one I figure probably won't have a whole lot of people, but eventually we'll get more. But I'm thinking that we're going to eventually probably going to do this, you know, Rumble thing. And I think we're going to rock it, and it'll catch on. But we're going to start doing some Rumble lives and just test runs and stuff and see how it comes out and see how Saturdays work out for us. And I think, like I said, I think it's going to catch on. So Second Saturday in May. All right, guys, I'm out. Peace.